Forget about Tesla. They bought Apple. They were dumb enough not to sell it 8 times along the way. Mm-hmm. And, they got a taxable gain. Forget about it in a retirement plan. They got a gain. Can you explain why somebody should create a taxable event on a big success?
Sure. So we see this in my office all the time on a regular basis. Someone comes in with a portfolio. It's $5 or $10 or $20 million. And 80% of it is one stock. They bought Amazon after the financial crisis in the single digits, and they've never sold. And now a $5 million portfolio is $4 million of Amazon. I don't have a problem with that, assuming you can sleep at night. But think about how much risk is embedded in a portfolio. So do you write calls? Come on. What you do is you basically map out a plan to peel off 10 or 20% a year as a part of a diversification plan. You're not just going to hit the bid and sell it all at once, because then if this thing doubles, the client is furious, you look like an idiot. But you have to explain to them all this concentrated risk, come up with a reasonable plan to diversify away from it, and peel. If someone says, I love Amazon, I love Apple, I love whatever, and I don't want to sell it, well, what if we peel off 10% a year for the next decade so that you have a really diversified portfolio that, look at the history of Amazon and Apple. They've each had repeated 50% pullbacks, a number of 70% pullbacks, and 1 or 2 90% pullbacks. You can't put an entire portfolio at risk with that sort of long-term volatility.
Tom mentioned taxes. How do you, for your average client, how do you tell them if they come in and say, I can't sell this because I've got such a big taxable gain?
You burn incense.
Yeah,
right. So there's two responses to that. One response is you can do some tax loss harvesting to offset it.
Oh, listen to you.
But
harvesting?
Tax loss harvesting.
We had a guy from UBS here was doing marketing.
Right.
What in God's name would you use for? What do you use?
So you swap out a holding for a very similar holding. You swap out something. Emerging markets, perfect for that.
Yep.
You swap out a 1 AM fund at a loss to offset the gain. But there is one surefire way to never pay capital gains taxes, and that is don't have any capital gains. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen ride a stock all the way up, going back to the 90s. Remember Iomega? Yep. I cannot tell you how many people said to me, I can't sell my Omega, it'll kill me in taxes. Well, if you wait long enough, all those gains will go away, and you don't have to worry about taxes. That's the trade-off you're agreeing to make. I'm going to pay long-term capital gains of 3.5% now, but that means you're keeping 77%. That's better than nothing, and people forget nothing is worse.
If you had one thing today, other than Dr. Fauci's incredibly important comments on this virus, what Ritholtz just said there actually is...
Nothing is worse.
Really.
Then turning a giant winner into a break-even or a loser.
You better know your underlying free cash flow.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I'm talking Bill Priest's book here right now. Barry Ritholtz, thank you so much. I'm not sure what your plan is. He's going to come back with us. That's a good thing. Barry Ritholtz with us. And again, I was wrong. Rich Truman says, correction, the movie's Memorial Day 2022 as well. Now the news in New York City. Here's Michael Barr.
Paul, thank you very much. Problems with a mobile app appear to have forced a delay in reporting the results of the Iowa caucuses. Iowa Democratic Party Chair Troy Price, in a conference call with reporters early this morning, says they expect to have numbers to report later today. Price says there was confusion with the voting results from the caucuses because of the reporting issue.
We are validating every piece of data we have against our paper trail. That system is taking longer than expected, but it's in place to ensure we are eventually able to report results with full confidence.
The Democratic presidential contenders are arriving in New Hampshire for next week's primary there. The Senate will hold a vote tomorrow on whether to acquit President Trump in his impeachment trial. Yesterday, in closing arguments, House Manager Adam Schiff urged Republicans to vote to convict the president. Fellow House Impeachment Manager Jason Crow says the Senate may be poised to acquit President Trump, but the fight must continue to hold the president accountable.
And at the end of the day, we can't allow to happen is for a new normal to be set, for us to turn a blind eye to the president's behavior and conduct and say it's okay, or to even give him a slap on the wrist. It's time that we actually start saying a more powerful message that this is not who we are as a nation. And that takes courage. You know, public service, by definition, means you're serving other people. You're serving the public. And that entails some sacrifice.
Nearly all of Trump's fellow Republicans are defending him. China is now reporting 425 deaths and more than 20,000 cases of the coronavirus. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, top?
Michael, thanks so much. Almost up 400, 392 right now. Dow 28,793. SPX up 39 points, 3287. The resiliency, Paul, is extraordinary. You mentioned that very early. It's just stunning.
Yeah, I'm surprised. And, it's that moment where you think, gee, the market, this could be the catalyst to bring that market down, which, that 5 to 10% pullback that a lot of forecasters are suggesting would be healthy for this market after the performance we had in 2019. I'll give you a Tesla watch quote, Tom. $898. We are up 15% today. The stock did trade at 900 in pre-market. We are very close there. Short squeeze, or is this a re-rating of the stock, as Gene Munster suggested? I don't know, but the longs are just taking it. 900, boom. 901, here we go. I feel like auctioning off a bidder.
I had to buy Afterthought, the Nintendo thing, before Christmas, and I sold it at 380.
Exactly.
What a moonshot. From December 15th to now, was that 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
Yeah. So it's something going on here.
It's a 900. I don't know, even if I do that logarithmic, we can do this, folks, in the Bloomberg terminal.
Yeah.
We can go logarithmic like that. Oh, it's more than log convex. It's like 5 standard deviations.
Looking at a market cap here today of $158 billion, and our friend Mr. Musk owns about 20% of this company, as per Gene Munster. So a good day, actually a good couple of days, a good month for Elon Musk.
We're going to drag in here. He's tough to get. Kevin Tynan will join us.
Oh, boy.
I want to know, is this an auto company, a tech company? Bob Seger would say it's a car company. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Want to be billionaire Lloyd Blankfein's neighbor? For the sum price of just $260, you can, at least in name. A one-bedroom condo on the same floor as Blankfein's 4-bedroom at a Miami Beach tower is being bought by Compound, a firm that slices its holdings into bite-sized equity stakes and sells them off to everyday investors through its mobile app. The purchase of the unit for $2.5 million is set to close in April, using money raised through sales of as many as 100,000 shares of the apartment. Fractional ownership profits and bragging rights. It's also the idea behind a new blockchain digital token backed by collectible cars. Curio Invest and Seychelles-based MERJ Exchange say tokenizing luxury assets as a regulated investment could make them widely accessible to a bigger pool of people. The plan for their CT1 token is to bring about 500 cars worth $200 million to exchange, the first being a $1.1 million Ferrari. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Global news.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Listen, we know you're not here for ads, but while you're waiting for the music, cybercriminals might be waiting for you to expose your login credentials and payment information over Wi-Fi. Help keep your online activity private with Norton 360. It gives you multiple layers of protection, including secure VPN with bank-grade encryption, device security, password manager, and PC cloud backup. Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stocks are rallying along with crude and copper while treasuries plunge as investors speculate the global economy can withstand the impact from the still spreading coronavirus after China's market sell-off eased. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is up 1 1/3%, up 43 points to 3292. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1.6%, or 439 points at 28,839. And the Nasdaq up 1.4%, or 130 points to 9405. 10-year Treasury down 20-30 seconds, yield 1.59%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.40%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.6%, or 78 cents at $50.90 a barrel. COMEX gold down 1.3%, or $20.60 at $15.61.90 an ounce. The euro 1.1043 against the dollar. The yen at 109.25. We are watching Tesla. Shares are up 17%. It is extending its run. They're at $913 right now. Alphabet is lower, down 3.3% after delivering some weak earnings. And we're also watching Ralph Lauren. Shares are up 6.5% after posting sales that topped estimates globally and in North America. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. We're going to digress here. We can do this with Barry Ritholtz, of course, writing an important column, Bloomberg Opinion, and also his wonderful podcast. Who do you got on next? I mean,
this weekend we're
Shakira, J-Lo.
We're geeking out on cars, on supercars with Hannah Elliott.
Okay.
And then the following week we have Paul Krugman talking about his new book.
Interesting.
So part of our Nobel Laureate series.
How do I get Hannah Elliott's job? I mean, she drives around in luxury sports cars in Monterey, California.
She has literally driven every $1 million supercar there is, and she is more knowledgeable about cars and driving and high-performance driving than anybody
So which of her cars, without giving away your wonderful effort, which of her cars is the one you should drive on the street? I'm not talking about some guy keeping it on the estate driving 1 mile a week.
Well, today...
Which fancy car...
All of these car companies, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bentley, Rolls, they all have SUVs.
Yeah.
We talked about the Lamborghini Urus, their new $200,000 SUV. You could take anywhere. The problem is it's $200,000, so you're not gonna take it somewhere it's gonna get banged up.
I'm gonna rip up the script here, folks, and we can do this, folks, because Barry Ritholtz knows in 1946 there was a rivalry that started. It was the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks, and it had a history of our childhood that was absolutely magnificent. Knicks 90, Celtics 65, December 7th, 1946. It went on to a heritage. I grew up on the edge of the Rochester Royals a million years ago. It was back when basketball was basketball. And then in your youth, Barry, the Knicks were godlike. What happened?
So what happened? There were a couple of things. First, the rest of the league got better. So my youth was the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird rivalry, and then that was replaced with the Michael Jordan, everybody else rivalry. The biggest issue that seems to have taken place is the new owners of the Knicks. And when I say new, what is it, 20-something years?
Yeah.
they don't know how to win. They could win in hockey. They don't know how to win in basketball. They don't seem committed to really pouring money into the team. And they've just made a series of disastrous front office moves. Nobody wants to work there, and even when they get a good name, they don't stick around.
And to our international audience and our audience coast to coast, good morning on Sirius XM Channel 119 in Washington and, of course, Boston with Mr. Pellegrini with this recently. Paul Sweeney, this is a huge, almost unspoken issue in New York.
It really is.
I mean, it's almost like
unspoken.
No, it's
I hear this all the time. Guys in my office wear a "Sell the Team" shirt.
Yeah,
my head of research isn't wearing that.
Wait a minute.
Sell the team.
Lisa Bremma walks in here and said, "Sell surveillance T-shirt."
So Barry, I mean, this is we're seeing these NBA franchises around the country, sell for $2 billion plus. I mean, the Nets just traded a year or so ago. And before that, it was the Clippers with Steve Ballmer coming in and putting that.
By the way, Ballmer never looked happier in his life than when he bought the Clippers.
And he's already
the hell with software. I'm thrilled. He's thrilled with the.
So
basketball.
I mean, so if you go to the Madison Square Garden, packed every single game. It's not like the business isn't good. It's just interesting that the fans still support it, even when the team is god awful for what has been a generation.
Yeah, it's from when I was Knicks season ticket holders, when it was Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley and John Starks. That era was phenomenal. They came very close several times, but for, in one instance, a finger roll, in a dozen other instances, Michael Jordan. So what has kept people coming to the Garden is they've made the Garden much nicer. The one thing I could give the Dolans credit for,
they spend a lot of money on the
right. The Madison Square Garden is now a first class venue, and it wasn't always the case.
Is it the Maple Leafs curse up in Toronto that they don't have to be successul in winning because they pack the Garden with idiots like you who pay up for
that's part of it. Part of it is also that, all right, I'm going to go see somebody play from an opposing team, and even if the Knicks lose, well, if I get to see Zion, or if I get to see LeBron, or if I get to see any of these unbelievable athletes, well then, all right, the home team loses, that's a given, but at least I get an entertaining show. So, and the ticket prices just keep going up and up. So as a business model.
You sit ringside. Is it courtside? What do you call it?
He's in the front row of the Garden with Spike Lee and all those.
Yeah, hi, Spike.
I'm wealth adjacent. I'm not courtside. I'm one level back. So I call that ringside. If courtside, your feet are on the court. I don't swing that sort of way.
You watched Kobe Bryant play. What was Kobe Bryant like? I mean, a huge basketball fan. What was it like to see him come down the court?
Insane. It's he was the next Michael Jordan. He really was that. Right out of high school, that's what was just completely mind-blowing. And again, the issue was when he was playing, the Knicks were, not a spectacular team. And those tickets used to go for stupid money. It's the same today with LeBron. You want to go see LeBron in a decent seat, it's going to cost you $1,000 for a pair of tickets.
This has been wonderful. Barry Ritholtz, very valuable. Actually, we haven't talked about the Knicks in a while. Greatly appreciated. Of course, writing for Bloomberg Opinion.
Sell the team. Please sell the team. That's all.
Barry Ritholtz in his podcast as well. Market bid, I'm afraid to look. Paul, my fingerboard's heating up. What's Tesla at?
Oh, I don't know. What Tesla? We definitely broke above
TSLA.
Yeah, exactly right. Hit the BQ function, which is a Bloomberg quote here. So we are at $920, Tom. We are up 18%. Remember, the stock was up about 20% yesterday. I mean, I just have to call. I mean, I've been in this business 30 years. I've never seen a company of this market cap.
19% ownership. Elon, sell the damn company and buy the Knicks.
He should certainly raise a little capital so he doesn't have to go to the market later. Jim Bianco put up a wonderful chart of overlaying Tesla on top of Bitcoin.
Saw that.
It's about 2/3 of the way up, according to his best guess.
It has been a wonderful day. We need to say thank you to our team, particularly a major shout out to Kevin Cirilli and David Weston leading our coverage out in Iowa. They have had an exhausting 24
kind of anticlimactic
hours.
for
Dream on. It's the Democratic Party going to New Hampshire.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Okay, Sergey, screen 4. What are we watching?
It's a surprise.
What? Where are we? Oh, who's this woman? Is this a musical?
What is this vision I see in front of me?
Could this be my moment? It's happened finally.
Sergey, we both know you don't have the vocal range for this. Enjoy endless adventures with 2-for-1 cinema tickets from Meerkat Movies when you buy through Compare the Market.
Qualifying purchases Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Participating cinemas, 2 standard tickets only. Cheapest ticket free. T's and C's apply.
5 is in. What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Bayless. Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
On the Bloomberg Business app and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, good morning. We're going to take a look at Tesla here because their shares have gone parabolic, gaining almost $300 in 2 trading days. Just what does this signify about market conditions right now? Plus, we'll take a look at oil as OPEC Plus try to figure out a way to stave off some of the recent price declines. But right now, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Thank you. Stocks are up, Lisa, and we're sponsored by New Jersey Institute of Technology, a top 100 national university in the latest U.S. News and World Report college rankings. Learn more at news.njit.edu. Yep, stocks are up, so is crude oil, and so is copper. Treasuries are down. Investors are speculating the global economy can withstand the impact from the still spreading coronavirus after China's market sell-off eased. Andrew Holenhorst of Citigroup tells Bloomberg The coronavirus is still an unknown.
We don't know how significant the effects can ultimately be for the economy. To some extent, it depends on how widely this plays out, how long this plays out. We certainly have a lot of negativity priced into interest rates markets. It's not clear you have as much priced into risk markets. We haven't seen as big of an adjustment there. So I think the market is kind of reweighting what those risks are. But I would really just emphasize the uncertainty here.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P is up 1.4%, up 129. Excuse me. The NASDAQ is up 129, up 1.4%. The S&P right now is also up 1.4%, up 45. Just take a look at the 10-year. The 10-year is down 20-30 seconds with a yield of 1.59%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is currently up 0.75% at $50.47 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 1.25% at $15.6240 an ounce. The dollar yen, I don't have that reading right now, but I do have the euro, which is at $1.1045. The British pound $1.3023. Tesla's surge above 900 a share today drew New Street Research analysts to downgrade the stock to neutral from buy in the midst of the rally. Right now, Tesla, which they'll be talking about here in a second, is up 16.6%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues now with Lisa and Paul.
Greg, Jared, thank you so much. Green on the screen. Risk is right back on. The coronavirus seems to be abating for investors, at least. To get a sense of where the action is in the equity markets, we welcome Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, I'm guessing you're going to start with a little electric vehicle company.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, we can do that.
It's not as little.
Yeah, not as little as it used to be.
Not at $160 billion plus in market value. It's not. Boy, you got a couple more days like this, and Tesla is going to be right there competing with what's now the world's biggest company in the auto business by market value, Toyota, valued at $230 billion. But,
What's the logic here? I mean, a $300, it's basically getting close to a $300 move in 2 trading sessions, 118% gain year to date. Give us the logic.
Well, sometimes stocks just build their own momentum and they keep on going, and investors that have been betting against the company have to close out their bets, and we've certainly seen some of that. I mean, if you look at short interest, the number of shares of Tesla that have been sold short, as of mid-January, was already down something like 40% from a peak in May of last year. No doubt with the move that we're seeing, there's more of that going on. And then beyond that, I mean, if you take a step back from it, what has been the story really since March 2009 when, arguably the bull market started in U.S. stocks? It's been that you haven't seen euphoria. You are definitely seeing euphoria when it comes to Tesla.
Are we seeing it?
And it's not unlike what you saw back in 1999.
Are we seeing it anywhere else? Or is it just Tesla?
It really just looks like Tesla at this point because, it is very much a story unto itself in terms of its dominance so far of the electric car business and its focus on, electric vehicles and solar power and other sort of modern technologies like that, you might say. So, it's hard to kind of take a step back and find a comparison. I mean, we've seen stocks come and go over time. Think about the pot stocks in the last couple of years as an example of that. But, Tesla really does kind of jump out as a story where people are just getting really excited and arguably moving beyond what the company's valued. I was just talking about that yesterday, my chart of the day. Aswath the Motor and NYU making that case that Tesla was already too high at $640 when he sold stock, and now it's at $900. So go figure.
Yeah, looking at the markets, broader markets today, another risk on day, kind of shaking off the concerns of the coronavirus. The S&P up about 1.4%. One of the areas where we still are seeing some negative impact from the risk associated with the coronavirus is crude oil. Looking at WTI crude here, $50.30 a barrel. That's down from the high several months ago of over $60. We actually broke below 50 on WTI earlier today today in a trading day. To get a sense of what's going on in the oil markets, we welcome Grant Smith, oil market reporter for Bloomberg News, joining us from the London Bureau. Grant, thanks so much for joining us here. So is this pullback in oil that we've seen over the last several weeks, several months, kind of just reflecting the uncertain demand side of the equation?
It is. Demand has really become the main focus of the market, which is extraordinary given that just a couple of weeks ago, all of the attention was on supply. Everybody was worried that there was going to be some sort of disruption or conflict even in the Middle East. You had U.S. non-President Trump, the iron tensions rising between the U.S. and Iran, and people worried that there might be a loss of crude exports. That whole equation has been entirely reversed in just the past couple of weeks as the scale of the virus in China has become clear, and the impact on demand has become apparent just how huge that might be.
Grant Smith, thank you so much for being with us, oil market reporter for Bloomberg, and that certainly is what's going on with OPEC Plus as they consider possible production cuts to try to support the prices, to try to move this story back to a supply side story, providing a little lift right now to oil, but not much. And I want to say, I'm looking at iron ore prices, and even though we're seeing a rebound in a lot of the market, we're not seeing a rebound in iron with another leg lower here. And I'm wondering, I'm just wondering, Dave, what's the feeling as far as why markets, equity markets in particular, are able to shrug off the risk of coronavirus when just yesterday or the day before, people still were worried about this?
Well, I mean, we've seen kind of an up and down pattern in the last few days as far as stocks go. And today, I mean, you're looking at the possibility of a real 2-day gain, just as you had a 2-day loss not all that long ago, a little more than a week ago. So, there is sort of back and forth right here. I mean, you could argue that stocks are kind of hanging in there, though a bit more volatile on a day-to-day basis. And, when you talk about oil, you really have to look at ExxonMobil. I mean, shares yesterday at their lowest price since 2010. They tried to rebound in early trading. Today, up almost 2% at one point. Now they're only higher by 0.7%. So the concern is still out there, even with the recovery that we're seeing in crude prices, about where, the energy industry is headed. And, whether, given the rise of companies like Tesla, that, there's really going to be the demand in the future for what these oil producers are giving us.
That's a great point. I'm just looking at the Exxon down 12% just this year.
Yeah, but you know what? No one's saying that electric vehicles are really going to subsume the demand for oil in the very near future. I mean, maybe we're talking 8 years out, but it's not a sort of next year type of event.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting. Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thanks so much for joining us. And I agree, Lisa. I'm kind of surprised that when I look at the equity markets that we've had this rebound in just in the last couple of days, when it seemed just a couple of days ago there was real concern about the coronavirus and its impact on real economic growth.
If you talk about Tesla, though, there is this great hope around batteries, this concept of what will be the revolution that can make some of the sustainable energy actually last for a long enough time for you not to have to refuel your vehicle with energy. Exactly. And they seem to be making some headroads.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Nathan Hager for world and national headlines. Nathan.
Paul, the Iowa Democratic Party is now blaming a coding issue in a smartphone app for an hours-long delay that's still continuing in reporting the results of last night's Democratic presidential caucuses. The party says that issue is fixed. It's not a hack. They hope to get those results out as soon as possible. But some candidates last night acted like they already were, including Pete Buttigieg.
By all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious.
He and the other candidates are in New Hampshire this morning. On Twitter, President Trump called the Democrats' Iowa caucuses an unmitigated disaster. He will try to pivot toward his own reelection and away from the impeachment saga in tonight's State of the Union address. More from Bloomberg's Bob Moon.
It won't be the first State of the Union address in the midst of an impeachment.
Members of Congress, honored guests, my fellow Americans.
Bill Clinton spoke for 77 minutes back in 1999, and not once did he mention impeachment. President Trump's aides say he plans to focus on a positive message, and some Republicans have urged him to stay clear of impeachment talk entirely. He talked about the speech during a Super Bowl interview with Fox News commentator Sean Hannity.
We're going to talk about the achievements that we've made. Nobody's made a achievements like we've made, so many different things.
Aides say he'll tout what he says is the greatest economy in American history, tightened immigration, and his America First foreign policy. Bob Moon, Bloomberg Radio.
And the president heads into tonight's speech with his highest Gallup approval rating yet. 49% of Americans give the president positive marks, 50% disapprove. That includes a record 94% Republican support and a record 7% Democratic support. The widest gap ever in Gallup polling. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats, crystal balls, or cards that turn into money. Instead, you get business information from top-tier analysts and experts.
What should expectations be for this latest round of negotiations?
That's actually better, isn't it?
They're both trying to say they have the upper hand.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top...
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
it's time to search at On the Market.
There are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla.
On the Market.
See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Send message to Elise. Salut, sorry, I'm running late. Just in the car now. Send. I forgot the cake. Send. Actually, great news. SatNav has found a new route. See you in 10.
Message on the move in the Citroen C1 and stay connected. Experience Citroen C1, available from £149 per month with initial rental of £149.
Citroen.
Please drive responsibly. Citroen UK Limited is a credit broker, not a lender. Personal lease. You will not own the vehicle. Offer on fill VTI 72.5 speed manual. 6,000 miles per annum. Guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility criteria and return conditions apply. PSA Finance UK Limited.
Good morning. This is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking, and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
Welcome to Cathay Island. We hope you've enjoyed flying Cathay Airways. Oh, and Cathay, congratulations on the Euro Millions win.
This Friday's Euro Millions is a massive £105 million super jackpot. That's dream come true money. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing.
And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P is headed for its best two-day surge since October, with 10 of 11 main groups advancing. European shares jumped 1.5%, and emerging market shares rallied the most in 5 months. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P is up 1.3%, up 41. The Dow's up 1.4%, up 400, and the NASDAQ is up 1.3%, up 121. The 10-year is down 19/30 seconds. The yield 1.59%. West Texas Intermediate's up 0.5% at $50.36 a barrel. COMEX Gold's down 1.3% at $15.62 even per ounce. The dollar yen is at 109.22. The euro $1.10.45, and the British pound $1.30.27. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, the yield curve was inverted a couple of days ago. It is no longer inverted, but I'm looking at the 3-month versus the 10-year Treasury, no longer inverted. But what does that mean for the markets, for the Treasury markets? What are the Treasury markets telling us about the state of the U.S. economy? Nobody better to chat with on that topic. And Ira Jersey, he's the chief U.S. interest rate strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us on the phone. So, Ira, what do you make of, we've seen the yield curve invert, several times over the last 12 months or so. Anything that you take away from that?
No, it's basically the market anticipating what policy rates are likely to do over the intermediate term. So the idea being that with inflation low and with the Federal Reserve on hold, then you wind up seeing interest rates like 2-year interest rates, for example, be significantly below the Fed funds rate, in part because the market's anticipating the Federal Reserve to cut at some point over the next couple of years. And meanwhile, 3-month rates are going to be where they are because of the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates steady for at least the next 3 months. So it's hard. I think it's hard to glean a lot of information really from the 3-month and what's going on with the rest of the curve. I think you would need to think about this more from a bigger picture perspective and say, okay, if interest rates are going to remain low, the Federal Reserve is going to remain on hold, then yield curves in general in aggregate have to be flatter. The question is, will the Federal Reserve actually move, and what's the probability of that? And the market right now is kind of pricing for the Fed either to do nothing or to cut 2 or 3 times. So there's no middle ground here where the Fed's just going to cut once and be done. They're either going to kind of have a cutting cycle, or they're not going to do anything. And that's where what the market's fighting right now is which of those 2 outcomes is more probable or less probable.
All right. So you just sort of cast some cold water on one conspiracy conspiracy theory out there that's giving some people concern with respect to the inverted yield curve possibly foretelling a recession. What about the repo market now? Let's take a look at the Fed's repo operation today. Oversubscribed yet again. People often point to this as evidence that there still is stress in the financial system. You've been adamant that that is not the case, that this has more to do with the fact that the Fed is offering a really good rate to banks to use their repo facility. Is that essentially what this is yet again, that basically banks are going all in at a time when they can actually profit just by virtue of using this facility rather than the broader market?
Well, let's put it this way. The dispersion in bids at this morning's auction was 2 basis points. So people either bid 1.59%, 1.60%, or 1.61%. Why? Well, the reason is because the market at the time was 1.65%. So you're talking about basically saving yourself 5 basis points or so by using the Fed's facility instead of going into the open market. So, of course, you're going to bid for as much as you can possibly get because you're going to save yourself a little bit of money in financing your treasury portfolio. So, yes, I think nothing has really changed. It's still this idea that there's this small subsidy that's being offered by the Federal Reserve to dealers vis-a-vis where the market is. So I think that eventually the Federal Reserve is going to change its mandate. Actually, Chair Powell last week during his press conference even mentioned that we're going to slowly increase the minimum bid rate for these operations, and I think that's the right thing to do because realistically, the potential funding crisis that became evident last September, that's gone away because there's enough reserves in the system, and the Federal Reserve's repo can mop up whatever excess liquidity needs to be added late in the funding day for banks and dealers. But they're still giving this small subsidy, so get rid of that subsidy, and then you'll have a better idea. And you'd probably see, if this rate was 5 basis points higher, just 5, we're not talking about a lot. It's very possible that instead of having $50-odd billion in bids, you'd wind up with like 10 or 12. So that's the kind of operation that I think that you're going to see over the next couple of months when the Fed starts to creep up this rate.
So, Ira, one of the other issues that we've been chatting with you about is the introduction of a 20-year Treasury bond. What's the status of that? When are we going to see that? How's that going to roll out this year, do you think?
Yeah, so tomorrow morning, the the Treasury Department, is going to have its refunding announcement 8:30 in the morning, so kind of that standard time when we get a lot of economic data. The Treasury Department is going to tell us how many bonds and in what maturities they're going to issue over the next couple of months. But then they're also going to announce the new 20-year. Now, we expect, and I think the market consensus seems to expect it to be announced tomorrow, and then for the first issuance to come in May, because the Treasury Department likes to be regular and predictable, and to be predictable, they can't say, hey, we're going to issue this next week, because dealers aren't set up for that yet. So this way they can say, we're going to issue it, here's the potential size range, like $15 billion to $25 billion every month or something like that. And that way, as we head toward May, those people who are interested in buying the security can basically make room in their portfolios for it, and dealers who have to bid for these securities can then set up before going into the May announcement, which is when the next refunding announcement is. They can get short Treasury futures, for example, in order to hedge the potential exposure that they might take on with this auction. So I think that's going to happen. A lot of these auctions, where this thing is going to price is kind of all over the place. Some people say because it's a new issue, it's going to be cheap on the curve. Other people suggest that maybe it's going to be rich because of scarcity value initially, because there won't be many of them out there, and a lot of people need to buy them because it's going to be a relatively large portion of the index over time.
Ira Jersey, thank you so much for being with us. Ira Jersey is Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. Always smart. The repo issue is so interesting, this idea of the subsidy, basically, for banks that this has turned into.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that there's that gap to provide that incentive for the banks.
5 basis points, which is a pretty big gap when you look at the Treasury market and bid-to-ask spreads. Meanwhile, this just out about Tesla, that they might get a credit rating boost as a result of all the cash now swelling on their balance sheet, with their valuation doubling in just a few weeks. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks soaring as investors are gauging the latest efforts to contain the coronavirus. China's central bank took its first concrete steps to cushion the economy this week, providing short-term funding to banks and cutting the interest rate it charges for the money. Google parent Alphabet reported quarterly revenue that missed analyst expectations. Slowing search advertising growth weighed on the results. Google's search ad business, while still hugely profitable, isn't expanding as quickly because of the proliferation of other ways to reach huge audiences online. Sony has hiked its profit forecast for the second time this fiscal year. It's boosted by strong demand for image sensors that power smartphone cameras. Sales were up 40% in the quarter. And Hamilton is coming to the big screen. The Disney film due next year will feature the original cast. Disney paid $75 million for the rights. Disney reports quarterly earnings later today. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. The Bloomberg Business of Sport.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Sign up to Walk All Over Cancer with Cancer Research UK. Walk 10,000 steps every day in March, and together we will beat cancer.
Are you ready, Boots?
Time to get your boots ready.
Start walking.
Use the 10,000 Steps a Day Challenge to team up and bring friends and family together to help beat cancer. Come on, search Walk All Over Cancer and sign up now.
You're 169 in the queue.
I proposed on the 169. She got for the next stop.
You're my 169th greatest lover.
The number 169 never screamed going places until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of March 2020. £3,311.25p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Having to deal with financial stuff can make you feel ah! But at Money Supermarket, we make you feel ah. That's because we go further to help you get money car. We don't just compare. We cut prices to help you get better car insurance deals. Get money car. Money Supermarket.
Welcome to Cathay Island. We hope you've enjoyed flying Cathay Airways. Oh, and Cathay, congratulations on the Euro Millions win.
In tonight's Euro Millions, there are 20 UK millionaires guaranteed. That's dream come true money. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over. Football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Casting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to take a look at the Trump administration's new currency tariffs and what they mean for the global currency market. Plus, we're going to chat with our good friend Tad Rivell, Chief Investment Officer at TCW, on credit markets and his current investment outlook. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Moving into record territory here. All tech companies and banks are leading the broad rally and are trading today following solid gains overseas as China took more steps to soften the financial impact of the virus outbreak, the coronavirus. Jens Norvig, Exante Data, tells Bloomberg coronavirus effect is far from over, he says, for several reasons.
Like Chinese tourists around the world play a huge role in many different markets, especially in Thailand and so forth. If they don't come for several months, it's going to be major hits to those economies, like several percentages of GDP. And this, I think, is an effect where even if the factory is up and running quite quickly, people are going to be afraid. There's going to be essentially quarantines and so forth.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. As I say, records intraday. S&P is up 1.5%, up 48. The Dow's up 1.6%, up 460, and the Nasdaq's up 1.5%, up 142. The 10-year is down 22.30 seconds with a yield of 1.60%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 0.9% at 50.55 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 1.6% at 15.5660 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.33, the euro's $1.10.39, and the British pound $1.30.27. Ralph Lauren has jumped the most in 3 months after posting sales that topped estimates globally and in North America, even as the apparel seller navigates the environment for luxury goods in Asia. Right now, Ralph Lauren's up 10%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
We typically check in around this time with our Bloomberg Opinion columnists, and today we're so lucky to have John Authers with us, a senior editor for Bloomberg Markets and also a Bloomberg Opinion columnist here in our Interactive Broker Studios. And John, the reason why I'm particularly excited to have you, I'm always excited to have you, is because I'm trying to understand the narrative around the coronavirus right now. We shifted from a fear factor type of translation here to a buy the dip, Goldilocks kind of reversion. How should we understand this?
Okay. First of all, plainly, it has all the classic aspects of a black swan. I'm not saying the damage that is done so far counts as a black swan, but there is the risk of something where we simply cannot estimate the probability of a very serious outcome, and we're not sure exactly how expensive that very serious outcome could be. So you have that automatically is exactly the kind of thing that markets find it very difficult to price. Now, what you have at present is a belief that we were in the beginning stages of a reflationary cycle at the end of last year. How much of that is down to phase one of the trade deal is an interesting question, but there were any number of measures from markets, commodities, bonds, etc., suggesting reflation. And at this point, what we do know about the coronavirus is that it is going to have a pretty serious effect on Chinese growth. Cannot be otherwise. They're closing factories, they're shutting down transport. This is plainly a significant deal for China. Now, that has is leading to the calculation that it actually reinforces. It's a difficult way to. I struggled with how to put this tastefully in my column, but it's like
it's okay. If you don't have curses, just go ahead.
I'm just addressing the nature. It's if Goldilocks. It's not Goldilocks. Normally, a Goldilocks is an economy that's not too hot that you have to raise rates, but not too cold that you don't get the growth to help investors. At this point, Goldilocks is dealing with a virus rather than with the three bears. And while the virus is out there, while the effect on Chinese growth is out there, that locks central banks into the kind of low rate, easy money policy that means that we can continue with there is no alternative, we've got to buy stocks. That is the narrative that is running markets at present, I would say, and the only way that will be overturned within American markets outside of China is if we get a serious breakout beyond Chinese shores.
So, but clearly, I guess what's confusing me is the ripple effects of the slowing Chinese economy, what it means for, markets in Europe and all the trading partners, the U.S. included. It seems like the global GDP hit could, in certain scenarios, be materially impacted. And that is kind of what I'm concerned the markets aren't discounting at the moment.
I would say that they are to an extent in that if you take a look at the bond markets, they are in a classic defensive crouch for things to be very bad. And if you look at WTI,
I think that
on this very show 24 hours ago managed to get below $50 per barrel. Similarly, if you look at industrial metals, which is where China really is critical, the copper gold ratio is coming close to its lowest in many decades. So that it is showing up in markets. I suppose you still have the issue ahead of us that this really is horrific within China. So it's not just a percentage point off Chinese growth, which is a big deal anyway, but it really is the factor that brings an end to the Chinese growth story altogether for a while, and that we're not ready for. And then you do have, again, the issue that it truly breaks out around the rest of the world, and that is not something that is priced in. The S&P is whatever it is, 2% below its height. That is not priced in at all. That's still a risk, but as far as I can see at this moment, we don't have good enough information to start pricing it in anyway. So I don't know that I can have any great issues with people being complacent about that.
John Authers, thanks so much for joining us. We always appreciate your viewpoint. John Authers is senior editor for Bloomberg Markets, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. And of course, you can read John's work and all of the work from our fine Bloomberg Opinion columnists at Bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal at OPIN. Go on the terminal. They do great work, and we love having them as a resource for Bloomberg Radio. Looking at the markets here, very strong in the equity markets, as John was just saying. It might be, kind of the story of the only game in town. I'm not going to give a Tesla quote. If you can, if you want. It came back below 900. All I know is I'm not long Tesla.
Can I just say, Luke Kawa came out with a story just now saying that Tesla is more overbought than Bitcoin during the height of the bubble. If you look at RSI, the 14-day relative strength index. Just throwing that out there.
Just throwing that out there. Interesting. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Well, Paul, Iowa's status as a springboard for presidential candidates is in some question now after a chaotic end to the Democratic caucuses that haven't quite ended yet. The party is blaming a coding error in a smartphone app for providing partial results from some precincts last night, but now it says that glitch is fixed. They hope to provide full results from the caucuses as soon as possible. For candidate Andrew Yang,
I'll certainly take the folks in Iowa at their word. I mean, I'm sure they would not have wished this kind of delay
on anyone.
Well, without an official winner and with that delay continuing, several campaigns leaked internal data showing strong results. Pete Buttigieg gave what amounted to a victory speech last night, and the Sanders campaign says its rankings put their candidate on top. Impeachment debate has resumed in the Senate. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is accusing Democrats of impeachment fever.
This fever led to the most rushed, least fair, and least thorough presidential impeachment inquiry in American history.
Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says what's been rushed is the Senate trial.
The American people are just amazed that our Republican friends would not even ask for witnesses and documents.
President Trump will try to turn the page on impeachment at tonight's State of the Union address. White House spokeswoman Stephanie Grisham says the president's message will be forward-facing and optimistic. She says his guests at tonight's speech will include people who have been hurt by illegal immigration. President Trump's third State of the Union address is set for 9 p.m. Wall Street time. Bloomberg Radio will bring you live coverage. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
it's time to search out On the Market.
There are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla.
On the Market.
See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
One of these days, these boots are gonna gonna walk all over you.
Sign up to Walk All Over Cancer with Cancer Research UK. Walk 10,000 steps every day in March, and together we will beat cancer.
Are you ready, Boots?
Are you ready? It's not long till March.
Start walking.
Use the 10,000 Steps a Day Challenge to team up and bring friends and family together to help beat cancer. Come on, search Walk All Over Cancer and sign up now.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Along the goal line, Martin scores! He takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
There's a rally going on for stocks, crude, and copper. Treasuries are down. Investors are speculating the global economy can take it. Any impact, that is, from the still spreading coronavirus after China's market sell-off eased. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. Record territory, S&P 500 is up 1.5%, up 50. The Dow's up 1.6%, up 457. And the Nasdaq's up 1.6%, up 150. The 10-year is down 23 seconds. The yield is 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate's up 0.25% at 50.22 a barrel, while COMEX Gold's down 1.6% at 15.5640 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.33. The euro $1.10.35, and the British pound $1.30.32. After reporting lackluster fourth quarter sales last month, Ford and GM are poised to report their latest earnings. Analysts are eager to find out about the car makers' outlooks for 2020. Ford will report after the market today, while GM is set to report before the market tomorrow. Right now, Ford is up 1.9% and GM is up 2.8%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Disney reports earnings after the close, and one of the most fascinating aspects of the U.S. media business, or global media business, is how a lot of these traditional media companies are trying to pivot to more technology-driven streaming companies, trying to get that valuation from Netflix. And there's one banker out there who's making it all happen for the technology side of the media business, and that's Terry Quaggia, founder and CEO of Luma Partners Investment Banking, based here in New York. I used to work with Terry back in the day at Salomon Brothers and First Boston when he was putting all the traditional media companies together back in the day. Now he's kind of working with the new wave of technology-driven media companies. So, Terry, thanks so much for joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. So, again, let's just start with a company like a Disney. these companies are really trying to transform themselves from the old model based upon advertising and subscription revenue to streaming. Can they do it?
Yeah, great to be with you, Paul and Lisa. So here we are in the middle of what is one of the largest industries, right? There's over $100 billion of advertising and probably another $150 billion in paid dollars that support the sort of TV/video media channel. And all of a sudden, these massive companies with enormous market caps, you know the names, Comcast, Disney, Charter, etc., all have a crisis, a beyond existential crisis, as they effectively have to swap out their engines while keeping the plane in the air, right? They got to support those market caps with a fundamental change, not only in the technology of the delivery of their media and advertising, but also the channel in which consumers have chosen to consume their content.
Right. So the idea being that they are moving online. And the question is, with something like what Disney is doing so far, they've been rewarded more than other companies for investing, even though it's not going to make money. How long can that continue at a time when there are big questions about how much subscribers are willing to pay and how many services they're willing to subscribe to?
So, look, Lisa, I think this is early days. So I think all the people looking at the immediate subscriber, new subscribers and the subscriber churn numbers of, say, Disney's Disney Plus app, I think it's way too early to be looking at that. I don't think we're there in terms of, the value proposition. There are still content that hasn't gone exclusive onto Disney, so there still is some, distribution rights on other platforms. We can't fully judge it yet. And let's face it, we're still in the early days where they're providing subscription cross promotions. It's kind of free, right? If you buy an iPhone, you get Apple TV. If Disney has cross promotions with Verizon. So we're in the early fanfare days of streaming, the streaming wars. In fact, we're at the peak of the streaming wars, and we will be at the peak for the rest of the year. Think about it. When large companies have an existential threat and a rationale to get a consumer product out, they market the bejesus out of it. Just remember, last fall when Disney Plus was announced and Apple TV was announced, and this year we've got NBC with Peacock, we have AT&T with HBO Max, and we've got Quibi. So we are going to be in peak streaming wars all through 2020 and beyond.
So, Terry, you spent a lot of time with the advertising technology companies that make the digital advertising marketplace work. They interact. Obviously, that's really the engines of the big advertising giants like Google, like Facebook, like Amazon. Do you expect the technology companies, those big technology companies that have all that cash, all that free cash flow, to maybe get into the media business itself, into the content business in a bigger way?
Well, I believe they're going to play a major role. And listen, if you set this up as inevitably it is, a dichotomy, a war, it is called streaming wars after all, right? It's a war, not even just amongst the streaming choices, but between big media and big tech. And big tech has four major advantages. They've got, as you mentioned, market cap and cash on the balance sheet up the wazoo. They vastly outscale the big media companies. And the big media companies are trying to catch up by doing all these, traditional mergers just to garner enough scale. But even still, they do not compare to big tech. Second is they've got UI down pat. I mean, your user experience on Apple products or on Netflix is just so much different than your average cable company. Even the more advanced ones like Comcast X1, it just doesn't compare. They've got those kind of chops. So there are just so many elements why big tech, and by the way, they have the technology at their core. They were born digital. So the big media companies, and this is the part where I put up my hand and say thank you very much, need technology that's not technology native to them. They have to be able to avail their content across the channels that consumers want, which is OTT and digital. And to do that, right, there's so much complication. There's a Lumascape, which is a diagram of all the players in the space, because let's think about it, right? Across all these these channels of linear, addressable, OTT, and digital. I'm getting a headache just talking about it. There's different parameters in identifying who a person is. There's different technologies to deliver the ads.
Yeah.
It is just a whole bunch of conflation that needs to be sorted out.
Terry, I'm struck by your expertise being absolutely perfect on a day like today for a variety of reasons. You specialize in coming up with valuations of what companies may become and as they become the future. And I would love to get your perspective on Tesla, because right now, nobody can justify the valuation based on current fact. How does one go about understanding value at a time of transformation in a company that harbors at least a dream, if not a reality?
So what you're referring to, Lisa, is the complex art of valuing innovation. And I call it art because for most mature companies with demonstrable financials and revenue and cash flow that we can all analyze and compare to other similar companies, most of the valuation work we do on those kind of companies, I would put it in the category of science, right? There's science it's math, it's comparables, and plus or minus, 10, 20%, you're kind of gonna get it right, or right-ish. When you start talking about the kind of companies that I deal with, that get sold for like 20 times revenue, and people say to me, "Why did so and so pay 20 times revenue for that business?" And my answer is because they didn't. 20 times revenue. It's not as though they did it as a multiplier to get to the valuation. We started with, what is this worth to you? Figure out the valuation, and then it's division to find out what the multiple was. So when you look at a company like Tesla, I mean, it's basically the future. How do you value the future? I mean, if you were to ask people, rational people, are we moving towards an electronic future? The answer is yes. So it's just hard to nail down. It's not science.
Terry Kawaja, we've got to have you back and talk about...
We need more energy, I think, about talking about this topic.
I honestly, it's such a pleasure having you from every perspective. Terry Kawaja, founder and chief executive officer of Luma Partners Investment Banking in New York, talking about the intersection of big tech, big media, and big dreams. This is Bloomberg.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Wouldn't it be nice to keep things you normally lose? Your favourite scarf, your train of thought, or your mobile data. Because with most other networks, you get to the end of the month and your data is, well, never to be seen again. But unlike anyone else, with Sky Mobile, you can roll and keep all your unused data for up to 3 years. Sky Mobile. Hello, possible.
Full terms and conditions at sky.com/mobile.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Start
start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
At Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Where's your views on the municipal bond landscape?
The market does not like uncertainty, does not react well to uncertainty.
There's a whole lot of optimism around the valuation of Uber.
What is Ford saying about the self-driving car?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Maybe we're getting hooked on debt and low interest rates.
The black hole called power could be a bigger black hole.
Only buy IPO stock that you can't get. If you can get it, it's probably a dog you don't want it.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, Tesla surging once again, adding more market cap, more value to Elon Musk. We'll break it down. Plus, we're going to talk to John Chachas. He's an investment banker at Methuselah Advisors on the destruction of the newspaper industry by the digital economy. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg?
Well, Paul, in case you haven't glanced at the screen lately, the S&P's headed for its best two-day surge since October. 10 of 11 main groups are advancing. European equities have jumped to 1.5%. And emerging market shares have rallied the most in 5 months. The risk-on move gained steam after Shanghai stocks rebounded from a record $720 billion wipeout. Now, Stuart Kaiser, UBS Investment Bank, tells Bloomberg they are still long on those Chinese equities.
Whether you buy them today or you buy them next week is obviously, I think, the million-dollar question, perhaps quite literally. We are still positive Chinese equities from a structural perspective, but definitely acknowledge the uncertainties around that. Our economists in the region took down their growth forecast in China. Even our global growth number for the first quarter went from more than 3% to less than 1%. So it is a major impact on the short-term growth story. We do think, hopefully, if everything gets resolved, it will be temporary, and you do want to own Chinese equities in the long run.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 1.5%, up 48. The Dow's up 1.5%, up 435. The Nasdaq's up 1.6%, up 151. Let's check the 10-year. It's down 20-30 seconds with a yield of 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate's up 0.9% at 50.58 a barrel. COMEX Gold is down 1.5% at 15.58.90 an ounce. The dollar yen stands at 109.34. The euro $1.10.37, and the British pound $1.30.24. You figured that Tesla stock was a little rich for your blood, so you went for the options. I hate you. What's better than Tesla's surge? 10,000% potential winnings accrued to traders who held out-of-the-money call options. How about the $1,000 calls? They rose from 2 cents to $1.98, a surge of 9,800%. Oh, man. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues with Lisa and Paul.
Thank you so much, Greg Jarrett. Bloomberg Markets brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. Right now, we are looking at what may be the best day for the Russell 2000 since November. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, here to break it all down. What's going on?
It basically means the Russell is keeping pace with the S&P 500, more or less. I mean, Russell's up a bit more than 1.4%, and the S&P 500's up 1.5%. So, pretty much right there. Now, one of the Russell's biggest gains belongs to Livent, whose ticker is LTHM. Yes, lithium. We certainly talked about that in the context of electric car batteries, and Livent shares up more than 14.5%. The company and its peers are rising as shares of the automaker Tesla surge. So the mineral producers kind of sharing in the gains in today's trading, and Livent benefiting from that. Phibro Animal Health, ticker PAHC, has added 13.5% after posting fiscal second quarter results. Earnings at the maker of animal drugs and vitamins beat analyst average estimate in the Bloomberg survey for the first time in 6 quarters. And Allegheny Technologies, ticker ATI, has advanced 12.5%. These stainless steel makers' profit and revenue for the fourth quarter surpassed projections. Now, one of these steepest drops in the Russell belongs to, in fact, the steepest at the moment, belongs to Rockwell Medical, ticker RMTI. It's down more than 17%. The provider of kidney dialysis supplies raised $7.5 million by selling the equivalent of a 4.8% stake. And Easy Corp, Ticker EZPW is down almost 17%. The pawn shop owners' earnings and sales for the fiscal first quarter were well below estimates.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Going from small caps now to what is becoming a mega cap stock, Tesla, $902 trading right now, up 16%. That gives it a market cap of $162 billion. I've been doing this stock thing for 30 years. I've never seen a move in total market cap so amazing, so dramatic in such a short period of time. It's just extraordinary what we're seeing with Tesla. To get a better sense of what might be going on, we welcome Ed Ludlow. He's the auto reporter for Bloomberg News. Ed, any idea what's going on? I mean, I'll go short squeeze on you, but there's got to be something more than that.
It seems like a two-parter, Paul. Like, you have the Tesla story, right, where they've addressed a lot of the concerns that the bears had. They 2 consecutive quarters of profitability. They've got this reputation in the past on being late on new models, but it looks like the Model Y is already in production and that it could start delivering at the end of March. And that's important because, Americans clearly favor SUVs, and America is Tesla's biggest market. And they're kind of building on this momentum of consistent deliveries, consistent profit. And then there's this bigger picture question, which is there this shift now, both from consumers and from the OEMs, towards electrification? Is everyone going all in? And, if you see the Super Bowl this past weekend, half of the paid ads were EVs, right? You had Hummer, you had Taycan, you had Ford Mach-E. And so, looking at the narrative and the commentary from analysts, thinking about recent news flow, it seems to be this two-parter, the Tesla story specifically. And I think back to what Ben Callow, the Baird analyst, told me on earnings day, that 2 years ago this was a company that was destined to fail. People have written it off. But now what he says is that big institutional investors are looking at Tesla like a real company that can make money, and that it's an attractive bet.
All right, real company is one thing. A tech company is another thing. And This is ultimately a manufacturing company, one that makes cars. It is not a tech company and has much higher overhead. What is the argument to value it, though, as a tech darling, which is essentially what its valuation counts it as right now?
This will be the biggest ongoing question for Tesla, right? Market cap's what, 160 billion now. Toyota's market cap is around 200 billion US dollars. It produced and delivered 10 million cars last year. Volkswagen has a market cap of 50 billion, I think less than Tesla now. It delivered 10 million cars last year. Ford and GM, 2 million apiece. Tesla delivered 367,000. And so that is the question going forward, right? How can Elon Musk justify this valuation? He's going to have to continue with impressive gross margins. He's going to have to continue delivering with profit. Then there's this bigger EV question, which is one that I'm really trying to wrap my head around, that at the end of the day, only 2% of global sales are EVs. Or putting it another way, 98% of cars produced are still internal combustion engine cars. So the bigger question is this just a case that investors and Wall Street are more excited about EVs than actual consumers are? Then, the more bullish answer to that on the Tesla side would be, well, hold on, of that 2%, Tesla's accounting for about 8 out of 10 sales. So I guess the question going forward, and to answer you, Lisa, I don't have a good answer, is how does Elon justify that valuation going forward? I guess it's a ramp up in deliveries, from 50,000 10 years ago to a projected 500,000 next year, and how big that can get. I think Adam Jonas at Morgan Stanley is looking at around 2 million going into 2025 to 2030. So it's really a longer term question.
Just real quickly, 30 seconds, what's the competitive response been from the big auto company?
I guess this is another driver of the stock pool. You look at the other offerings out there. Tesla is outselling everyone, but we have this Bloomberg NEF summit going on right now here in San Francisco, and a lot of the chat is about how Tesla is advanced on the technology side. The batteries are better, the software is better, the total offering is better. The Audi e-tron is a $75,000 car, the Jaguar I-Pace is a $70,000 car, but they have inferior range and they're selling in much smaller volumes. And really, what we're waiting to see is those legacy automakers go all in on electrification, because it requires really big capex and it requires them to leave their combustion engines behind. And the narrative at BNF this week has been whether 2020 or not will be the year that happens.
Ed Ludlow, thank you so much for being with us. Ed Ludlow is an auto reporter for Bloomberg News. And I have to say, there was a really interesting story about Tesla's battery manufacturing factory making a profit. And that could have been one thing that triggered some of the buying, although certainly not all, and this certainly cannot be the explanation. But there is a belief that whoever can come up with a battery that can hold the energy for a longer period of time, whether it be solar, whether it be electric, is going to be the winner from this all. Right now, let's head to our 1991 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, thanks. A coding error in a little-tested smartphone app is getting the blame for an Iowa Democratic caucus that ended last night with no winner announced. Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf tells Fox News this app may have had a loading issue as well as reporting issues. The Associated Press reports Iowa's Democratic Party is holding another call with the presidential candidates this morning as the results remain on hold. Last night, Pete Buttigieg gave what sounded like a victory speech in Iowa. Today in New Hampshire,
we wanted to be able to go out and speak to supporters with everything fully released and counted, and it is frustrating, to put it mildly, that even as we speak now, we don't have those counts.
Iowa Democrats hope to have those counts later today, but there is no clear timeline. Two top officials overseeing Milwaukee's host panel for the Democratic National Convention this summer are sidelined over claims they oversaw toxic work culture. A letter obtained by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel says committee president Liz Gilbert and chief of staff Adam Alonzo are on leave pending an investigation. President Trump hopes to put his re-election message forward at tonight's State of the Union address, though his impeachment fight still isn't officially resolved, though acquittal does look likely.
I cannot vote to convict. The Constitution provides for impeachment, but does not demand it in all instances.
Alaska's Lisa Murkowski is one Republican who had been on the fence. Democrat Joe Manchin is raising the idea of censuring the president. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Our relationship with Asia is simple. Find the most experienced journalists.
These countries will need each other more and more in the future.
Let them gather the best data and experts.
Let's get to Singapore now and our guest.
Then bring everything they find straight to you.
Let's talk about where you are. There's quite a lot of headwinds there too.
Actually, it's not simple. It's just better. Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
3, 2, 1. Oh no. Which button am I?
When every second counts, you can't wing it.
Guys, a little help up here?
In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So make a family home fire escape plan. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year so everyone knows what to do when they hear. Prepare your family at ready.gov/fire drill. Brought to you by FEMA, the Ad Council, and Make Safe Happen.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
What if you could...
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, Every journey matters.
As the boss, I expect only the best for my office. Air conditioning, super comfortable seating, digital radio, and rear parking sensors. From dealing with deliveries to balancing the books, my new Citroën van, my office on the move. Award-winning Citroën vans. Like you, they do it all. With £500 off during the February van event. Citroën. £500 discount inclusive of VAT on qualifying relay, dispatch and Berlingo vans ordered from 1st to 29th of February and registered by the 31st of March. Business users only. Full T's and C's at citroen.co.uk.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing.
And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks are up for a second session in a row as the spread of the coronavirus outside of China appeared to slow and signs are emerging of improving factory activity in some major economies around the world. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is up 1.5%, up 50. The Dow's up 1.6%, up 450, and the Nasdaq's up 1.7%, up 160. The 10-year is down 30 seconds. The yield is 1.59%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 1.1% at 50.66 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 1.5% at 15.5950 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.32. The euro's $1.10.35, and the British pound $1.30.25. Hundreds of Macy's tech workers are being laid off or relocated. The retailer says it's closing an office in San Francisco. The CEO informed the affected workers yesterday that the company would be closing its San Francisco tech office. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Recently, Warren Buffett threw in the towel on his newspaper holdings, saying he just didn't see this business turning around. There is a big existential question facing the entire newspaper industry. And on the front lines of it, John Chachas, founder and managing principal at Methuselah Advisors. He joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. And John, I say you're on the front lines because you've advised Clear Channel Communications on their $18 billion buyout, the Disney Company on its 2006 sale of ABC Radio. I'm trying to understand what the new model will be to save an industry that by almost all measures is dying.
It's a huge question. Thanks for having me.
You've got 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Look, the newspaper industry is going to have to remake the revenue model. You can't have a revenue model which was essentially 75% advertising based and 25% subscription based. Have the advertising side of it go away piece by piece. First, digital killed classifieds, which was the highest profit component of the advertising model. Then run of press came under gigantic pressure. So the digital impact in this industry, as it is in many industries, far, far deeper. And until they replace that with a bigger subscription side, meaning the users of the content pay for the content, the newspaper industry is in deep, deep trouble.
All right, so the users, we've seen a couple of success stories in New York Times, maybe the WallStreetJournal.com, FT.com, a couple of national global brands have created that kind of model, a subscription model. It's been the savior of the New York Times Company. But we haven't seen many success stories or any success stories at the more local level. So what is the future? This is a public policy question. What is the future of local journalism?
I think it's a huge question for the local paper that's not the New York Times. The New York Times is a national asset. Now, truth be told, the vast, vast majority of the readers of the New York Times are New York-centric or sophisticated urban readers. The largest paper in America, believe it or not, is USA Today.
Yep.
USA Today is the largest distribution paper.
Because it has a deal with all the hotels, and they can stick it in front of everybody's
that's true.
door.
It's that free paper that's under your door. But it is still read in lots of places and picked up in airports and in hotels, and yet it doesn't really make money. It was an asset of Gannett. They built it. Great scope. Doesn't make money. The question becomes, what would happen if these papers, the Denver Post, the Salt Lake Tribune, the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Constitution, if they go away? And that's the existential question. They could go away, with the exception of a few of these places that are owned by very wealthy parents. The Cox family, extremely wealthy, is not going to let go of Atlanta. Jeff Bezos has bought the Washington Post to preserve it as an asset. But if you don't find a billionaire who wants to run each giant local daily paper as a mission, you have to change who's making money on it. And the right way to change it is look at how much money is being made by Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the digital giants who have access and use all of this content and don't pay a dime for it. Nothing for it. That, to me, is criminal. And the newspaper industry let the mare out of the barn, as they say, a long time ago, 15 years ago, when they should have asserted their copyright privileges and said, don't touch my stuff unless you pay me. And instead, the newspaper industry, like everyone else, thought that access to digital traffic and volume of digital traffic would be the nirvana.
All right, so how do you corral the mare? How do you get it back in?
The newspaper industry has to do, it's like the patient who has a terrible cancer and needs chemotherapy. It's an ugly, ugly experience, but they're going to have to do it. 60% of digital traffic on daily papers in America or more is generated and coming out of Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the digital platforms sending traffic to those papers. Therefore, the digital traffic manager at the Albany paper or the Buffalo paper gets a call from his publisher saying, we've told those platforms not to put our stuff up on their site anymore. And that guy, the top of his head blows off because he's like, well, how am I going to have it be a business? There has to be a negotiated solution where instead of using all of that content for free, they actually pay something into the industry. And there are perfectly good models for this. In the music industry, there are models where users of music content pay reasonable license fees for the use of that, whether to the songwriter or the artist or the performer. In the television industry, we've seen real payments go to the television stations from the cable guys who are using the signal. People forget, 15 years ago, there was no such payment. Last year, the cable guys paid $12 billion to the television stations for use of their signal. Why shouldn't the digital platforms do the same?
In 1 minute, what's the Fair Use Collective?
Fair Use Collective is a concept. It's an idea that we've been supportive of, and the News Media Alliance in Washington has been supportive of. It is a position that the industry comes together, and a little bit like the music industry, which uses BMI and ASCAP as the intermediary, something, whether it's the Fair Use Collective or something else, acts as the representative in negotiating en masse with Google, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, and people that are using the stuff for free, and gets a fair license payment, and then distributes that license payment out to all the papers in a manner that's reasonable and commensurate with what they generate. Obviously, the New York Times of the world, the Washington Post, they're going to get a significant piece of that because they're what people are reading. But all of these papers need it. Imagine a world where the Chicago Tribune disappears in terms of doing coverage on the State House in Illinois, or the Denver Post doesn't exist. We are not far from that world. And so the Fair Use Collective idea is that these license payments have to be distributed across the industry to sustain these papers.
John, thanks for coming in and sharing that commentary with us, those thoughts with us. It's really fascinating. I think it really goes to the heart of the matter, kind of a public policy issue. Is local journalism required in a democracy? And a lot of people obviously would say absolutely, it is certainly required. But given what happened in the digital world, a lot of these papers are at risk.
Yeah, well, there's also a business question. How do they make money?
Yeah.
And at a time when people aren't really willing to pay for it, and classifieds aren't really a thing in the same kind of way.
Yep.
Where's the model?
Yeah, so John and others are thinking about that model. John Chach is founder and managing principal, Methuselah Advisors, based here in New York City, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio, talking about that issue. So we had Terry Kawaja, former colleague of John's, on earlier, talking about some of the digital aspects of business. But the other end of the equation is some of the traditional media companies, the print media companies, the local journalists have to figure out a business model that supports those businesses. Not, we only have the New York Times and a couple other big papers that have made profits on the digital business. That needs to change for journalism. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are rallying this session. Investors are speculating the global economy can withstand the impact from the still spreading coronavirus. The S&P is heading for its best two-day surge since October. Oil higher at $50 a barrel. Officials from OPEC gathered today for an urgent meeting to assess the impact of the coronavirus on global demand and how the group should respond. The outcome of the meeting may determine if OPEC convenes an emergency meeting to weigh output cuts. Simon Property Group is said to have held merger talks with rival shopping mall operator Taubman Centers. Bloomberg has learned talks between the companies stalled in recent days due to the market volatility, and it's unclear if and when they'll resume. And the Super Bowl broadcast on Fox drew 102 million viewers, rising slightly from last year. It's still the most popular TV event of the year, but its audience had been declining after hitting a record in 2015, when 114 million viewers tuned in. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. The market's in.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing.
And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Have you ever thought, I wish I'd had that information sooner?
Talk to us about applications.
Let's fix that.
You own a number of brands.
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg Business Week, now live on YouTube. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, markets today rallying except not Alphabet, Google's parent company, after reporting disappointing earnings yesterday. We'll dig into those and talk about what to expect going forward. Plus, we take a look at the debt markets at a time of a record global junk bond issuance. Right now, though, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
A rally gets even greener, Lisa. Stocks have rallied along with crude and with copper. Treasuries are down. Investors are speculating that everything's going to be okay as far as coronavirus is concerned. Jonathan Levine, Bain Capital, tells Bloomberg it is hard to estimate the impact of the coronavirus on the economy and on the markets.
Clearly, in the short run, I think it's going to have an impact. If for no other reason than the uncertainty of it will have a massive psychological effect. And I think the next 2 to 4 weeks will be really, really important in understanding how long it is here to stay, is it contained, and what the impacts are going to be.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day, and a lot of optimism. The S&P 500 well into record territory is up 1.7%, up 54. The Dow's up 1.7%, up 492, and the Nasdaq's up 1.9%, up 175. The 10-year is down 20-30 seconds with a yield of 1.59%. West Texas Intermediate's up 1% at 50.61 a barrel, with COMEX Gold down 1.6% at 15.5660 an ounce. The dollar yen $109.43. The euro $1.10.35, and the British pound $1.30.26. We're getting word across the Bloomberg terminal that the Federal Reserve has permanently banned senior Goldman Sachs Group banker Andrea Vela from the industry over his alleged involvement in the Malaysian investment fund scandal known as 1MDB. The Fed's order announced today stated Vela, a former chair of Asian investment banking, was put on leave last year, failed to inform Goldman of potential illicit activity involving the bond offerings of 1MDB. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Google reported results last night, came in a little bit below expectations, particularly on the top line. Looking at the stock here, trading off about 3.3% here. So investors are a little bit concerned about the growth story at Google. Let's chat with Colin Gillis. He's a director of research at Chatham Road Partners based in New York City. Colin, thanks so much for joining us. What was your takeaway from those Google numbers last night?
So, you see the stock trading down, and when you look at the results, you just have to frame it in the perspective that this was a company that was priced for perfection on the results. 17.3% revenue growth. It was a little bit lower than what people were looking for, so that's why we're seeing the pullback. The earnings beat was also driven by lower than expected tax rates. So the quality of that earnings beat is not that high. So the stock is pulling back, but bear in mind it touched a lifetime high just a few days ago.
Yeah, well, touching a lifetime high is all the other big tech companies, so that hasn't stopped them from continuing to rally and head up there. There's a question of advertising dollars and the fact that Google is perhaps losing share to some of its competitors. Do you think that that's sort of an accurate takeaway from the earnings that we got yesterday?
What I would look at is what are the areas for forward growth for Google, right? And if you keep in mind that this is a company that has 9 products with over 1 billion users each, Android, Chrome, Gmail, Drive, Maps, Search, the Play Store, Photos, and YouTube, there's ample opportunity for them to continue to keep their market share and to continue to drive monetization. Right? Seeing the YouTube numbers for the first time, that was wonderful, right? The new CEO gave us more data and insight into some of the future growth areas for the company, and we can touch on that in a little bit. But the key thing is, when you look at Alphabet as a whole, there are easily identifiable opportunities for forward growth.
So, Colin, you mentioned kind of the new disclosure for the company. They broke out for the first time revenue for YouTube and also for the cloud. Both big businesses, big growth numbers. What did you take away from the numbers that you were able to see that they disclosed last night?
Yeah, very positive. In terms of YouTube, right, they reported $15.15 billion in 2019. That's growth of 36% from the prior year, and it's more than doubled or about doubled from 2017. So that's a really sizable business. The key thing to remember about YouTube is that the monetization level per user is still very low. Right, so there's going to be plenty of room for them to continue to drive monetization, and they talked about that on the earnings call, particularly direct response advertising. Right now, YouTube tends to skew more towards brand advertising, so that's going to be a great area. And then Google Cloud, they touched on that. That grew 53% in 2019, including growing 53% in the fourth quarter, its best quarter in history. So this is an area where they're going to be tripling the size of their sales force, continuing to invest both headcount and capital expenditures. And it's relatively small compared to AWS. AWS is about 4 times, which is the Amazon Web Services business, about 4 times Google Cloud. But Google has the ability to build this infrastructure at scale, and I believe that they're going to be a material player in this business.
All right, what's your target then for Alphabet shares, considering the fact that right now they are down more than 3%?
Right. So, you want to bear in mind that, they've had a great run in 2019, But you could easily see something around the $1,600 level coming up by the end of the year.
Just to sort of give some perspective, right now we're at $14.33 and 10 cents. And just sort of looking ahead to Twitter, what are you expecting tomorrow? I guess Thursday when they report.
Yeah, right. So we get the consumer tech companies, right? We get Twitter on Thursday. We get Spotify and Snap also this week. So Twitter as a business, right? I don't love it. I mean, you know, we talked about the 9 products that Google has with over 1 billion users. You know, for Twitter, we're going to hope to see that monthly daily active users can break 150 million. It was around 145 million in the prior quarter. They've had problems with their tech ad platform. They had some glitches. They're likely going to run into the same issues some of these other companies have cited in terms of seasonality in Q1, both with the stronger U.S. dollar impacting growth rates. So expectations are low, right? The stock is literally about the exact same spot where it was a year ago. So this is one of those names that has not run. If they can, you know, they tend to put a little bit of EPS upside on the bottom line, and we'll see what they can do on the revenue. You know, people are expecting somewhere around the midpoint of guidance, which would be below 10% growth. So expectations are low for the stock, but, you know, broadly speaking, I don't have a high outlook for it.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us. Colin Gillis, Director of Research at Chatham Road Partners, talking about what to expect from this Twitter earnings, and Alphabet definitely getting a little bit beaten up today. A little beaten up. This is a bit of an exaggeration considering what these shares have done. Yeah. It's had a great run. And I'm sure if Colin is correct, it will continue to run. But it really does raise a question about the competition between tech companies. You know, is there just such a secular growth in some of these businesses like the cloud that it can support all of them, which is what we saw out of Azure with Microsoft and AWS with Amazon. Plus, coming up, we're going to be talking about the high-yield bond market and just fixed income markets generally. We're seeing very much a risk-on move there. The record for a monthly total bond issuance globally, junk bond issuance for January, was set last month. Right now, let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Well, Lisa, we are still awaiting results of last night's first in the nation Democratic presidential caucuses in Iowa. The state Democratic Party is reportedly holding another call with the candidates. That's after they blamed a coding error in a smartphone app for this ongoing reporting delay.
Apparently, they had a problem with the computer system and getting the numbers on. I think they'll be able to count them by hand, just like people used to, and then they'll get them in. It's
Democrat Amy Klobuchar now awaiting those results from New Hampshire, where she and many of the other candidates have tried to move on. On Twitter, President Trump called Iowa's caucus an unmitigated disaster. Tonight, the president plans to deliver an optimistic, forward-looking message at his State of the Union address. That's what White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham is saying. Some of the president's Republican allies hope he will avoid complaining about impeachment as that debate continues in the Senate. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
I urge every one of our colleagues to cast the vote the facts, the evidence, the Constitution, and the common good clearly require. Vote to acquit the president.
Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
If Americans believe that they don't determine who is president, who is governor, who is senator, but some foreign potentate out of reach of any law enforcement can jaundice our elections, that's the beginning of end of democracy.
The president heads into tonight's speech with his highest Gallup approval rating yet, 49%. That includes a record 94% approval from Republicans, just 7% approval from Democrats. Global news on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Are you interested in
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
This is a live message from the Survivalist Network. There are reports of an impending zombie apocalypse reaching London. But don't panic. Our intel shows that for £199 a month with 0% APR representative, you can locally access the Toyota Hilux Invincible, the only vehicle with the build strength to withstand savage hordes of the undead. Once inside your Toyota Hilux, stay on this frequency for updates. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £10,246 when financed through Access Toyota by 31st March 2020. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing.
And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA on demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
Always in discreet packaging. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P's headed for its best surge since August now, with all 11 main groups advancing. European equities jumped 1.6%. And emerging market shares rallied the most in 5 months. We check the numbers here every 15 minutes throughout the trading day. S&P 500 is now up 1.7%, up 55. The Dow's up 1.7%, up 484. The Nasdaq's up over 2%, up 186. The 10-year is down 21 30-seconds. The yield is 1.6%, we'll say. West Texas Intermediate crude's up over 1% at 50.60 a barrel. COMEX gold's down 1.6% at 15.5640 an ounce. The dollar yen, 109.42. The euro's $1.10.38, and the British pound $1.30.22. Visa's planning the biggest changes in a decade to the rates U.S. merchants pay to accept its cards, hoping to persuade more people to abandon checks and adjusting its fees for new businesses such as ride-hailing services. It's the swipe fee they're changing. Right now, Visa's up 2%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
At a time of the everything rally, when perhaps we're still in Goldilocks territory, perhaps we're at the very end of it, there is a question of whether to buy junk bonds. Certainly a lot of people are doing so with a record volume of global junk bond issuance in January. Joining us now to discuss the road ahead for riskier assets within the fixed income world and beyond, Tad Ravel, Chief Investment Officer for Fixed Income at TCW, which has $175 billion under management. Tad, the reason why I wanted to start there, I know you've been bearish on high yield for a while and warning against some of the risk. I'm wondering what you make of the issuance that we've seen of late, including, for example, a PIK toggle deal that is being marketed today to finance a private equity dividend payout.
That's probably all the commentary that you need. PIK toggle to finance a dividend to private equity sponsors and LPs. So we haven't seen, obviously, that level of indiscriminate issuance in the junk bond market probably since the end of the last cycle. So, I mean, first of all, a couple of maybe bigger picture statements about the below investment grade marketplace. We plumbed the low in spreads seemingly about 3 or 4 weeks ago. The start of the year, we came into the year with a lot of euphoria. Spreads are actually about 60, 70 basis points wider. So we went very quickly from the low 300s to the high 300s. So there's a lot of cross currents going on in the market. There seems to be a lot more risk discrimination going in the market, which is to say that the double Bs have done actually quite a bit better than the triple Cs, and the market is allowing a lot of semi-excessive type of transactions to occur, such as the one you alluded to. And on the other hand, it's become also rather skeptical of some of the more levered business models out there as well.
So, Ted, I know from past discussions with you, you cite the concern that we are at the tail end of the economic cycle. What are you seeing in terms of credit quality, maybe in the portfolio in your portfolio or some of the new deals coming to the market?
Well, I guess a good starting place is to start by thinking about how much leverage is embedded now in the credit markets. Generally, you've seen, moving away from high yield for a moment, there's something like 25% of the investment grade corporate debt market that's now sporting leverage ratios, reported leverage ratios of more than four turns, meaning more than 4 units of debt for every unit of earnings. That's significant because, while this is a vast generalization, I think it's probably fair to say this, that if you were walking down the street, tripped, and fell into the office of a major rating agency, and the first questions out of their mouth was, "We've never met you before, but tell us about how much leverage is on your balance sheet." If you said to them, "Oh, I've got less than 2 turns of leverage, less than 2 units of debt for every unit of earnings," they'd probably say to you, "You're probably investment grade. I don't need to know a whole lot more about you." But when you're at about 4 turns of leverage, it's probably more like, "Well, you'd better tell me a really good story about your business, its management, and so forth, for you not to be below investment grade." The point being is that with such a large cohort of the investment grade market, as I alluded to, 25% over 4 turns of leverage, the risk of reprising what we've seen in prior cycles, which is that basically somewhere between maybe a quarter to a half of the triple B marketplace tends to suffer downgrade into below investment grade, you're probably already in that territory. So what can you say is that as long as people are willing to extrapolate and say tomorrow will be like yesterday and the cycle will never turn and the Fed's all powerful and all that, you probably don't have to worry about the rating cycle turning more pernicious, but it will at some point because all of the tinder, so to speak, is already piled up there.
So what are you doing in terms of buying and selling?
Well, we try not to respond too much, obviously, to the day-to-day noise. Is that the way we have always held ourselves out, is that you should probably think about the asset price cycle as, roughly speaking, the way we've typically characterized it. It has three phases to it. So in the early phase, you're supposed to be all in terms of risk, at least as it relates to a fixed income investor, because it's a big beta trade, is that everything trades wide, and everything trades wide because everybody got their fingers burnt in the last deleveraging. And so you go down the capital structure, you take on illiquid investments, you sell convexity risk. Wherever you find it, it's probably going to work out, because even if you did your fundamental analysis wrong, probably isn't going to hurt you. When you get to the late cycle, the question that we pose to ourselves, but we would pose it to anybody, is should you be underwriting credit risk, counterparty risk, the same way in the late cycle as you should in the early cycle? Now, if you're a momentum investor, you say, well, of course you should. If anything, maybe you should pile on more. Well, the value perspective says no, you shouldn't. You're supposed to, in the late cycle, you're supposed to go back to the old Ben Graham dictum about bonds, that it's negative selection, and you want to avoid the more excessive levels of risk-taking. So what do? Okay, you don't put your portfolio in cash, but you probably go as follows. You need liquidity in the late cycle, so you should have some treasuries and agency mortgages, which, by the way, agency mortgages have actually fairly attractive spread levels.
Yeah.
For just sort of ordinary run-of-the-mill yield, there are at least a relatively good sampling of opportunities in the investment-grade universe. Just because that market at large is significantly levered doesn't mean that opportunities don't come along. They do. I mean, a year and a half ago, the blowout in GE spreads may have 5.5 turns of leverage. There were some issues and concerns that people had. But at 350 basis points over treasuries, you're being paid for it. Today, fast forward, the investment-grade market is 90, 95 over treasuries. You have to be really selective about what you do, but you should own some. And then you're supposed to go back to the premise that we said earlier, which is, what are you not supposed to be owning? Because the last thing a fixed income manager, I think, really wants to report back to investment committees, boards, shareholders is, you gave me all this discretion, you trusted me, and I bought a bunch of bonds and they're down 40, 50 points and they're not coming back. But sorry, you should keep me on board anyway. I think it's implicit in the mandate for a fixed income manager, at least, not trying to legislate for the world, but this is our view of it, is right. That's part of the expectation, is that you'll be prudent in the late cycle and kind of greedy in the early cycle. It's just Warren Buffett in bonds.
Exactly. Hey, Tad, thanks so much for joining us. Tad Ravel, Chief Investment Officer for Fixed Income at TCW. $175 billion under management based in Los Angeles, with a consistent conservative view of the fixed income markets, Lisa.
Yeah, it seems like the way to go about this market, at least today, is just buy Tesla, because that's what everybody else is doing. I mean, it is sort of a question. People have been warning these, having these dire calls for a while. When's it going to play out? Yeah,
it's interesting. I think a lot of folks are saying as long as the central banks globally remain accommodative, dovish, however you want to frame it, that's all these markets need. For Lisa Bromwitz, I'm Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings. Interconnect.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded? Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Do you go on the same holiday every year? To the same country, in the same hotel, with the same sea view, visit the same ancient monuments, lay by the same dolphin-shaped pool, meet the same Barrys and Sandras, and wear the same Hawaiian shirt that you'd never wear at home? Then maybe it's time to switch it up, starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins, 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Des Moines, Iowa, to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, I'm Kevin Cirilli, in for David Weston. Welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. We start with the lead political story here in Iowa and across the country, the caucuses that were meant to shape to the Democratic presidential race, but leaving candidates now and voters hanging with no results. We're expecting news from the Iowa Democratic Party to come this hour, and we will bring you those headlines as we get them. But first, let's bring in Bloomberg DC's bureau chief, Craig Gordon, for more. All right, Craig, wow, number one. And secondly, where are we right now in terms of finally getting those results?
Well, as you say, the Iowa Democratic Party is about to convene a conference call with the campaigns. They did a couple of these last night. As of right now, we don't expect that call to reveal the results, although it's a very fluid situation. We're not entirely what we're going to hear. We do know that many of the campaigns, but most prominently Joe Biden's campaign, has really questioned the process and really challenged the Iowa Democratic Party to explain what's happening, what's the process for verification, and, you know, how it goes forward from here.
So as the more time that goes on, as we inch closer, State of the Union tonight, tomorrow the acquittal in the Senate, then, of course, New Hampshire on Tuesday. I'm struck by this. Will Iowa matter?
Yeah, it's going to matter not as much as it used to, though. You're right. The news cycle is very unforgiving, especially this week, which I would argue is the busiest 72 hours I've ever had in my career. Iowa caucuses, State of the Union, and expected acquittal of the president. Winning Iowa matters. It matters in the Democratic race. Pete Buttigieg seemed to have a pretty good night. Bernie Sanders seemed to have a pretty good night. If that holds up, that is going to help them as they head on to New Hampshire.
And they didn't get the headlines they wanted. The national papers, people waking up, people staying up late last night, they didn't get that moment to declare someone a winner. That hurts them. And I'm struck by Biden campaign strategy. It would seem that this is a strategy to really go to a process argument to say, hey, wait a minute, we're prepared for this for the long run, so meet us in New Hampshire.
Look, I think when you're a politician and you are losing, you start talking about the process. If Joe Biden thought he was at the top of these results, he'd be screaming at them to release them. Instead, there's a little bit of hand checking on what's the process, what's the count look like, et cetera. There's a widespread feeling Joe Biden did not do well last night, and I think that's what we're seeing in there.
Coming up, we're going to talk about the policy of this, particularly cybersecurity, as well as the implications of politics for the president's State of the Union address. He's already tweeting about this, saying, hey, wait a minute, this is reflective not just of Iowa, but of a larger process for the Democrats. But I want to ask you about the policy here in Iowa. Ethanol. I mean, should they lose this caucus? Should Democrats pull out? Even one party pull out? It's a significant policy and economic implications.
Yeah, look, I mean, already the Iowa caucus was kind of hanging on by its fingernails. It is one of the whitest states in the union, a very small minority population here. The Democratic Party prides itself on being a party of diversity. A lot of African-American voters, Hispanic voters, they are in very short supply in Iowa. So Iowa was already under challenge from other states that think it shouldn't be first in line. Now, when you mess up the caucus, boy, it makes our argument for being back here in 2024 much harder to make.
And it's brutal. And these Iowans take their job very seriously. Jean Hesberg is also joining us here on set. She's the former executive director of the Iowa Democratic Party. Jean, what are your colleagues saying, your former colleagues saying in the past 12 hours? I'm sure they haven't slept a wink.
Well, that's true. It has been very busy, and I'm not going to deny that this process or the reporting results didn't turn out like we had hoped. But we have to separate two things here. One is how it was reported, and two is the caucus itself. I am never going to be the person that is going to sit in a chair and argue against the Iowa caucuses. Okay, and the issue.
Why?
Why? Because it is the best process, the finest of democracy at work. Iowa has never argued that we're the most diverse state. That's the reason there are 4 early states. We have to look at the 4 early states as a package, all of which represent equal parts of the country. We have Iowa, we have New Hampshire, we have South Carolina, and we have Nevada, all representing great diversity across the country, all for reasons of building party. The caucuses and the early states are about building the party process, and the Democratic Party equally in building the strength of the Democratic Party in parts of the country. This isn't about representation in Iowa. Right. This is about representation across the country.
Gene, I was struck by this because Senator Joni Ernst, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, 2 Republicans of the state of Iowa, as well as Governor Reynolds, another Republican, they released a statement this morning, and they said, hey, we got to keep this. Don't let this mess up with the app.
Sure.
Take away the first in the nation status.
Absolutely. We do take our caucus very seriously. And one of the reasons the caucus is so beautiful is that it is an investment. This is people investing their time and their energy
and their money.
And their thoughts and their money.
But their money, it's a big media thing.
Absolutely. I'm talking about the volunteer effort and the people that actually go out and caucus. This is an investment, not just pulling a lever, but we all have to remember that the caucuses are about a party building toward November. For us, this is about beating Trump in November. So we're trying to build up the Democratic Party. And again, in the 4 early states representing the West, the Midwest, and the South, and the East Coast. All of these exercises are about November and beating the Republicans in November.
Craig, let me bring you in here because you hear from Democrats how important it is for them to win back the Midwest part of the country, states neighboring here, states like Iowa, which the president carried by 10 percentage points last cycle. The president's going to talk to the country tonight. And this is the lasting political story now of the last 24 hours in America's consciousness. Does this change at all what the president has to say tonight?
I'm sure he'll mention it. I'm sure he'll talk about it, and I'm sure he'll crow about it a little bit. Look, there's a story right now out on the Bloomberg terminal that some people in the market, in the Wall Street sort of part of it, think what happened last night actually helps Donald Trump quite a lot because the Democrats definitely look like, sorry to say, the game they can't shoot straight. I mean, they can't even run their own election. It's the Iowa Democratic Party that runs this election, and they messed it up, plain and simple. So,
but and respectfully, I mean, to defend Gene Hesberg here, the former executive director of the Iowa Democratic Party, and not to go against you, boss, but this could have happened anywhere. I mean, this happened, and cybersecurity is so crucial. So, but conversations are going to have to be had here, Gene.
Absolutely. Absolutely, conversations are going to be had. We have to go back historically. Since 2004, the Iowa Democratic Party has been asked for more information, exponentially more information in every election cycle since 2004, even faster. And each time we have delivered that, more information and faster for whatever monster we need to feed for that information faster. And we have delivered. Where we haven't delivered how we wanted to, we have looked at our past mistakes and improved upon those. I have no doubt we're going to do an examination of what went wrong, and we will improve upon that. We have historically improved upon that. Iowa still is the best place because we know how to do this.
So you were in that boiler room on the night of 2004. You said before we came
I was in the boiler room last night.
Last
yes.
night as well.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a scene in there when this started to go.
Well, I can tell you I ran a caucus last night. I ran a satellite caucus last night, and my caucus went beautifully. And it was a satellite caucus at a senior living facility, and those people would not have otherwise been able to caucus.
Okay, who's in charge of this app?
I don't know that.
Why don't people know that? Shouldn't people not? But shouldn't your colleagues know that? Shouldn't people know who the app was? I mean, was it just tested for the first time last night?
I can't answer that either. I can only imagine. My guess is it was tested. It was stress tested. But you know, that's what happens. I know that and I would wager that the Iowa Democratic Party stress tested the app as well.
So what do you think they are doing right now? Troy Price, the chairman of the Iowa Democratic Party, came and visited us here at Bloomberg. What are they like right this minute? What do you think they're doing?
Well, I think what we're doing right now is what we did last night, which was taking calls from the precinct chairs and getting the correct data, which is what we want, accurate data. And that's what I did when I went in after my satellite caucus, and I helped the party, and I took calls and made sure, and we're getting the accurate results by hand and getting pictures of the math caucus sheets, and that's what we're focusing on, is getting the accurate results.
And I just say to folks, I mean, this happened in Iowa, it could happen anywhere, and it's so important, and we're going to talk about the cybersecurity implications nationwide, worldwide for these elections now, is a conversation that has been injected into the American consciousness. Gene Hesburgh, former executive director of the Iowa Democratic Party, I very much appreciate your time to come and walk through this, and of course, to Craig Gordon, the D.C. bureau chief here in Iowa. I know you've had a busy morning, so thank you as well. And now, let's get a check of the markets from Abigail Doolittle in New York.
Thanks, Kevin. Really a risk-on tone on this Tuesday. Take a look at the major averages along with the stocks here in the U.S. We have the S&P 500 up 1.7%. The stocks really outpacing those gains, up 3.1%. These are the best days that we've had for these U.S. indexes since last year. For the S&P 500 since last August, really pretty incredible bounce back from last week, which was the worst week for the S&P 500 since August. So a little bit of a reshifting of views around the coronavirus and what it could mean for the global economy. Speaking of the global economy, the emerging market index is also bouncing back, up 2.5%. Net, though, since the fears around the coronavirus really came out about 2 weeks ago, all of these averages are down. But on the day, confirming the risk-on mood of investors, take a look at the 10-year yield up for a second day in a row. Today, backing up by 8 basis points over the last 2 days. Bonds pulling back the most since November of last year. Not pulling back, though, in any way whatsoever, Tesla. Let's take a look at a year-to-date chart of Tesla. This is extraordinary. Over the last roughly 25 trading days this year of 2020, more than a double, up 118%. There's a huge short interest on this stock, so probably some of those investors getting burned by their idea that the stock would going down are getting out. That sends the stock higher. Will it last? The 2013 parabolic uptrend actually did last, so there is reason to think maybe this one will as well. Where we have another bounce back on the day, similar to equities, we have the commodity complex higher, not on the highs. The Bloomberg Commodity Index earlier had been up more than 1%, now up just 0.25%. Keep an eye on the commodity index and these commodities, oil, copper having its first up day in 15 days because they are less liquid and they're more of a tell in the global economy and especially Chinese consumption. And then finally, Kevin, breaking news not so long ago, we have the shares of Textron up 5.6%. There's a headline, Bombardier is in talks to sell its business jet unit to Textron. If that happens, it would help Bombardier perhaps have cash to help with their $9 billion debt, which some investors see as too high. Textron clearly benefiting right now, Kevin.
All right, thank you to Abigail. That Tesla story continues. Now with the First Word News update in New York, here's Mark Crumpton. Mark?
Kevin, thank you. The Iowa Democratic Party says delays in reporting the outcome of Monday's caucuses were due to a coding issue that has now been fixed. The party says it hopes to release results sometime today. Officials say they believe the party's reporting systems were secure and that there was not a cybersecurity intrusion. Candidates left Iowa Monday night for New Hampshire without the outcome of the contest being announced. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is slamming House Democrats' drive to impeach President Trump as, quote, the most rushed, least fair, and least thorough in history. The Kentucky Republican opened today's session by calling the two impeachment charges, quoting here, constitutionally incoherent. Leader McConnell has dodged questions about whether the president's actions pressuring Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky to announce an investigation in political rival Joe Biden were inappropriate. The president will pivot tonight from impeachment to his drive for re-election. He'll deliver the annual State of the Union address. The theme of his speech, the Great American Comeback. He'll speak before a joint session of Congress tomorrow. The Senate is expected to acquit him in the impeachment trial. For only the second time, a death from coronavirus has been reported outside mainland China. Cable television in Hong Kong says the victim was a 39-year-old man who had an underlying illness. China says the number of confirmed cases is now more than 20,000. At least 425 people have died. Macau is taking new steps to stem the spread of the virus. It's asking casino operators to shut down for a couple of weeks. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. Kevin, back to you in Des Moines.
Thank you, Mark. And coming up, we're going to take a look at technical difficulties faced last night and what it means for the coming primaries. Plus, tonight, tune in for our State of the Union coverage. David Weston kicks that off at 9 p.m. Eastern. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and Radio. I'm Kevin Cirilli. This is Bloomberg.
Revisions return.
Dad, I'm doing the mashed potatoes too.
Do the Albert Bartlett potato mash.
Do the twist.
Do the patatas bravas with a British twist.
Yeah. Do the brown sauce, balsamic and chutney.
Oh, do the melting potato slices.
Do the dishes.
Grab a brand new recyclable bag today and do the Albert Bartlett.
He's got a brand new bag.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Petrol, cashback, sat-nav, cashback, food shop, rucksack, aubergine and pasta, white wine, cashback, treadmill, cashback, flowers for the family, dressing gowns, cup of tea and movie night, cashback, chopping board, cashback, parmigiano, reggiano, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Get cashback on whatever you buy, with no limit on how much you could earn. Only with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Despite never having used them, Alison Peartree was not initially a fan of purple bricks.
Because I heard from my uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker they don't have proper estate agents.
But Alison's uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker was wrong. Purple Bricks have experienced local agents ready to sell your home.
Turns out Martin from Purple Bricks was very knowledgeable. And he didn't charge commission. I've even recommended him to my sister's boyfriend's auntie's hairdresser, Sharon.
Purple Bricks. Book your free valuation today.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing service cost extra.
Unmistakable. New York City. From the second you first hear it, like the soundtrack to your favourite film played live. After 7 dream-filled days at sea to do as much or as little as you please. And then you're awake, Brooklyn bound, sailing silently beneath bridges as the skyline rises from the Hudson to meet you. Bask on your balcony and take your coffee with cream as Lady Liberty welcomes you to the city that never sleeps. That's a world away. That's the Transatlantic Crossing by Cunard. Discover more at cunard.com. APTA and ATOL protected.
The UK has now left the EU, and we are in a transition period until the end of the year. Throughout this period, the government will be forging new partnerships with the EU and the rest of the world. This could lead to new arrangements for trade, travel, and business. To find out about the changes and how they might affect you, go to gov.uk/transition.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London, Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
There's something in the middle. They've been doing caucuses in Iowa since the 1800s. There's an old tradition of doing these things. And, they're using a new technology now, and it just didn't, for whatever reason, have the capacity or the capability to hold up, whether they didn't test it right or who knows what exactly went wrong. They're saying it wasn't a hack, but it does highlight the challenges with using technology in these spaces. And if you don't have paper backups, luckily they do here, what the challenges might be going forward, particularly as we think about potential election manipulation efforts going forward by, nation states. Now, we don't know that they're going to come after our actual election, our votes. They haven't done that yet, and we know that will be a huge issue. But it's still something to be thinking about and be getting ahead of as we look towards the November elections.
I think that's a really great point, Jamil, especially through the prism of how the intelligence community is working with the political front. But it's really a patchwork across this country. Local elections are different from state elections, of course, from federal elections as well. Does that lead to confusion at the ballot box, not for voters, but for how to count these votes?
Well, Kevin, I think the main issue here is how to get the states to work together with one another and to work better with the federal government to protect these votes when the big election comes up in November. When that general election comes up, we know the Russians are targeting it. We've heard the Chinese might be looking to get involved, also other nation states. And so what we've got to do is, look, individual states run these elections as they always have, right? The problem is that individual states don't have the wherewithal, just like a single company doesn't have the wherewithal to defend against a nation-state attack. So what you've got to do is bring these states together in sharing alliances to share information about threats, to collaborate together on defense, and work with the federal government. Chris Krebs at DHS is leading on this issue to really bring together a collective defense system to defend the nation when it comes to these elections.
Jamil, I just want to read a headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal now. The Iowa Democratic Party to release most of the Iowa caucus results by 4 p.m. on Tuesday. So again, the Iowa Democratic Party to release most of the results in just about 5 hours from now. That, according to, again, the Iowa Democratic Party, the headline crossing the terminal now. So they said this morning, Jamil, that they wanted to get these results out as quickly, as efficiently, and of course as accurately as possible. I'm struck by this, though, because that's just a few hours when these results come out ahead of President Trump's State of the Union address. This is not the caucus that Iowa organizers had hoped for, is it?
No, that's exactly right. They had obviously hoped to get the results out last night, like they have done traditionally, for the last 30 years. And so, obviously it's a black eye for the party. They're obviously very unhappy. They're going to try to get these out as fast as possible. But again, they want to be accurate because the last thing they want is questions within the party about who was the winner. What does that mean for New Hampshire? What does that mean for South Carolina coming up? It's still a very hotly contested primary season for the Democrats. And they're looking against a very tough general election opponent in Donald Trump, particularly coming off of what appears to be a soon-to-be impeachment victory. So they really want to get this right, and so they ought not rush to it. If they can get them out and get them right by 4 o'clock, then that's fine. But I think you will see, you've already seen the Biden campaign putting a letter out late last night about the questions about these results, and so we'll see what's to come next if, in fact, as expected, Biden doesn't perform as well as they hope he might.
Very quickly, Republicans should be watching this, too. I mean, if it could happen to Democrats, it could also happen to Republicans.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, look, there's not a lot of competition right now in the Republican Party for the nomination, but certainly going forward in the next series of elections, this is going to be a big issue. And whether it's the presidential election in this caucus or the primaries in New Hampshire or down the road in the general or in later on primaries, the issue with ensuring we have ballots and that elections are not only fair but are seen to be fair is a critically important issue. It was an issue in 2016. It's caused us all sorts of electoral challenges and discussions in our political system over the last 3 years. if we have these problems going forward, we're going to need to get them cleaned up. Otherwise, it's going to cause Washington and our government to come to stasis. And that may be good in some ways if you don't want the government regulating a lot, but it also can be bad if you need the government to do things that it can't do efficiently.
All right, Jamil Jaffer, founder of the National Security Institute at George Mason University, and of course, the former senior advisor to the House Intelligence Committee. I really appreciate that perspective. And breaking news now, President Trump is weighing an exit to the World Trade Organization's $1.7 trillion pact for government contracts. That is according to a person familiar with the matter. More headlines as they come in. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
A pack needs someone to follow.
It's got to be important for somebody to have a breakout moment.
Don't look now, but they're behind you.
Imports declined 2.8%.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Sources tell us that agreement is expected to include commitments on U.S. intellectual property.
With Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
Could we see that play into the results and the forward guidance?
Weekday mornings at 5 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm Kevin Cirilli, and now it's time for the stock of the hour. Tesla is continuing its incredible surge. The stock is up about 15% today, adding on to yesterday's 20% gains. Kaylee Lyons has more. Kaylee?
Yeah, Kevin, the only way to really describe Tesla's move as of late is parabolic. The stock has already doubled so far in 2020. It's only been a month, and it has literally already doubled in valuation. Of course, a lot of this may be short covering. It was a very heavily shorted stock, but you also have continued optimism after its blowout quarterly report last week, as well as the opening of its factory in Shanghai. But really, there is a lot of momentum behind this. If you were to look at the relative strength index, the RSI, it's a momentum indicator, tells us whether a stock is overbought or oversold. Right now, the Tesla is around 93 on the RSI. That is significantly overbought, even more overbought than Bitcoin was at the height of the bubble back at the end of 2017. Now, with the run-up we've seen, Tesla's market value is now above $160 billion. That is far greater than Ford and GM combined, even has left Volkswagen in the dust. Actually, in terms of market valuation, it's only behind Toyota in terms of the global automakers. But the thing I really want to focus on with that valuation is the fact that if you were to take the NASDAQ 100 as a guide, that index trades at a price to earning multiple of about 28 on average. If you were to apply that to Tesla, that would mean that at the current valuation, it would need to have a net profit of $5.5 billion, which frankly, Kevin, the company does not right now.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Kelly Lyons. And up next, the number of countries bracing for the spread of the coronavirus is growing. The UK is now encouraging all British citizens to leave China as Macau shuts its casinos for half a month. This is Bloomberg Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Investors speculate measures meant to contain the coronavirus, and on speculation the global economy can withstand its impact, are sending stocks soaring today. The Dow is 462 points, NASDAQ up 178, S&P 500 up 52 points or 1.6%. Well, China has become a double threat to fashion brands between Trump administration tariffs on made-in-China apparel and the coronavirus. Levi Strauss closed half of its stores in China last week, and Ralph Lauren says it's done the same. Meanwhile, Clorox has been cleaning up during the coronavirus crisis. Investors figure people want bleach and other cleaning supplies. And Dick's Sporting Goods is changing its stores and its marketing to appeal more to women. The chain is expanding its selection of merchandise for women and girls. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Have you ever thought, I wish I'd had that information sooner?
What does this tell us about the state of deal making?
Let's fix that.
One unprofitable company plus another doesn't make a profitable company.
Carol Mazur.
Talk to us about real-world applications.
Jason Kelly.
Remind us what the potential is for everyday folk.
Bloomberg Business Week.
Vice President of Exploratory Science is one of the cooler titles.
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg Business Week, now live on YouTube.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm Kevin Cirilli here in Des Moines, Iowa. But for Bloomberg First Word News, we go now to Mark Crumpton in New York. Mark?
Kevin, the European Union is rejecting President Trump's proposal for securing peace in the Middle East. The EU is also expressing concern about Israel's plans to annex more Palestinian land. The bloc says it remains committed to a two-state solution. Mr. Trump's plan was welcomed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas dismissed it as, quote, nonsense. Turkey says it doesn't want trouble with Russia. Speaking to reporters on his flight back from Ukraine today, President Recep Erdogan said there's no need for the two nations to engage in a confrontation. He added that Turkey has no plans to step back from its S-400 missile defense system purchased from Russia. 7 Turkish soldiers and 1 civilian were killed in a clash with Syrian forces in Idlib on Monday. Prosecutors say former PIMCO CEO Douglas Hodge should go to prison for his role in that college admissions scam. They're asking for a 2-year sentence. Hodge has admitted paying bribes of more than $625,000 to get his children into the University of Southern California and Georgetown University. He'll be sentenced on Friday. There are a number of developments in the coronavirus outbreak. A death has been reported in Hong Kong. That's only the second fatality outside mainland China. There, the death toll has risen to at least 425. And Beijing is reporting that there are more than 20,000 confirmed cases. The U.S. says it's preparing for a possible pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. Kevin, back to you in Des Moines.
Thank you, Mark. And I want to stick with the coronavirus because joining us from Hong Kong with the latest on the global response to the outbreak is Yvonne Mann. All right. Thank you, Yvonne, for joining us. What is the latest in terms of how officials are reacting over there to prevent this from spreading?
Well, it seems like in the last 48 hours or so, we've seen Hong Kong at least actually increase some of those travel restrictions. They've shut out all but 3 of those border checkpoints here in the city. But as Mark had mentioned, the first reported death here in the city and marking the second death outside of China. But what we've learned from this case was this was a 39-year-old man who did have an underlying health condition. He had traveled to Wuhan and returned back to Hong Kong and started showing symptoms, but reportedly while he was during that visit in Wuhan, he did not visit any wet markets. He did not visit a healthcare facility. So there are some concerns now here of this threat of local transmissions, which is something that we've been talking about for some time. And this, as we've been talking about, the death toll and the cases continue to shoot up. Mark had mentioned at least 425 deaths now, 20,000 infected cases with fresh cases out of Singapore and Thailand. And we see businesses as well. Shutdowns are piling up with the likes of Macau saying and asking their casino operators to shut down for the next 2 weeks, which would be quite significant. They haven't done so since 2018 when there was that big typhoon. And Cathay Pacific also cutting 90% of their flights to China, Kevin.
Well, Yvonne, I mean, that's exactly where I want to pick this up because my sources back in Washington, D.C. are saying that this is having a real impact on the U.S. and China trade relationship and other countries that are trading with China. No?
Yeah, and you could say it's adding more strain to the U.S. and China relationship, given the U.S.'s response. They've banned entry of non-resident travelers from China. So that was significant, given the fact that the WHO refrained from adding any travel restrictions on trade as well as travel. So in Beijing's eyes, this seems like at this point the U.S. is overreacting. They've accused the U.S. of spreading panic in light of this issue. But it really hasn't just been the U.S. that's implemented these travel restrictions. We've seen it all across the globe as well. But certainly it has in some way hurt the trade negotiations moving forward in some way.
It's definitely added a lot of volatility into the market, but it's also added volatility in terms of how trade officials like Treasury Secretary Mnuchin are able to negotiate with these officials. Dive into my terminal now because pull up this chart if you can. I mean, 20,642 confirmed cases and at least 425 deaths now as a result of this particular outbreak. I mean, what are they saying? I mean, you mentioned about how they're pushing back about how the U.S. is communicating about this virus and the coronavirus outbreak from a worldwide standpoint. But what are they actually doing to prevent this in China from spreading?
Well, they've done some pretty drastic measures already. Of course, the lockdown in Wuhan that started in January 23rd, then that led to the lockdown in surrounding cities as well. So you're talking about 50 million plus people that are essentially being quarantined right now. And in Wuhan, that super fast hospital that they were building, that was built in 10 days and set to house about 1,000 beds. So that's going to help relieve some of the medical workers and the staff right now trying to keep on and work throughout this crisis right now. So we've seen those measures. We also have been talking about how China in the last 24 hours or so issuing a temporary ban on trading wildlife. This is not a permanent ban, mind you, but certainly this has been a significant development here, given that this was the suspected kind of source of this disease was through these wildlife and wet markets. So we've seen some pretty big measures, and the WHO also talking about perhaps, I guess, a little bit of good news here, saying that at this point the virus has not caused a pandemic, although, as you mentioned, the U.S. is preparing for one. one, but they did say that they have not shown much mutation yet. And we have seen also cases, yes, the numbers of infected cases continue to go up, but also the number of people that have recovered, that's in the hundreds too. I think the last time I checked, it's about 500 or so people that have recovered from this disease as well. So certainly there is some good news on that front.
All right, David Acacia host, Yvonne Mann, thank you so much for getting us up to speed on that. Your reporting has been so incredibly important for this entire storyline. I'm anticipating that President Trump is going to address the coronavirus in his State of the Union address tonight. Now let's get a check on the markets from Abigail Doolittle in New York.
Well, Kevin, we certainly have the bulls rushing back into stocks. This after last week's big slide on those coronavirus fears and the coronavirus that you were just talking about with Yvonne Mann, the idea that it could really impact the global economy and growth along with the U.S. corporate profit outlook. But today and yesterday, investors want back in on stocks. Take a look at the S&P 500 up 1.7%. Its best day since August. We also have the Dow transports, which have slid more because of the airlines and the transportation aspect of that index and the fact that, or the idea that it could be hit more on a possible clampdown on world travel. The SOX chipped, also very sensitive to China through the supply chain and revenues, bouncing back up 3%. All of this confirmed by the fact that investors don't want bonds for a second day in a row, haven bonds selling off. However, since the start of the real news coming out around the coronavirus, it's a bit of a different story. When we hop into the Bloomberg, we have big declines for the major averages here in the U.S., but really the Shanghai Composite, which is down about 9% over the last 2 weeks or so, headed to its worst quarter right now since December of 2018. That's true, too, for that Dow Transportation Index that I was saying was more sensitive to the coronavirus outbreak and the possibility that travel could really be shut off to some degree on a global basis and hurt some of the stocks in that index, headed to its worst quarter since December of 2018. The S&P 500 on today's big rally is bouncing back to some degree, but overall still down since the coronavirus fears have erupted. Take a look at oil, because this has been another market to watch and track around the coronavirus. And oil had, at the highs today, been up 3%. This after a roughly 15% decline over the last 2 weeks. The bulls trying to keep oil higher, right now bouncing back just a little bit more, up 1%. Not so long ago, up only about 0.5%. Commodities very key. They're less liquid than stocks. And also China is the world's largest user of natural resources. So really a key tell on a market barometer to the coronavirus and what it could mean for the economy. And then finally, Kevin, getting away from the coronavirus and the market impact, some big movers here in the U.S. Tesla up in a huge way, up 17%, more than doubling this year. A bit of a short squeeze as the bears most likely are getting out. We also have some other stocks which had been down more recently related to that coronavirus, such as American Airlines, Wynn Resorts, and Marriott. But today, a nice bounce back right across the board. The bulls in charge on this Tuesday, Kevin.
The bulls are in charge. All right, Abigail Doolittle, thanks so much for that update. And you can tune in for our special coverage of President Trump's State of the Union address. That kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And next week, be sure to tune into the coverage of the New Hampshire primary. We're headed to New Hampshire next. That kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, February 11th. I'm Kevin Cirilli. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
If you promise to cover the latest financial and business, Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P is heading for its best surge since August, and the NASDAQ hit an all-time high as the two-day rally is extended. European equities jumped and emerging market shares rallied the most in 5 months. The risk-on mood gained steam after Shanghai stocks rebounded from a record $720 billion wipeout. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 1.7%, up 55. The Dow's up 1.7%, up 482. And the NASDAQ's up 2%, up 184. The 10-year is down 24.30 seconds with a yield of 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate Crude is up 0.9% at 50.56 a barrel. COMEX Gold is down 1.8% at 15.5370 an ounce. The dollar yen is at 109.45. The British pound at $1.30.34, and the euro $1.10.40. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett. Now more Bloomberg Balance of Power with Kevin Cirilli on Bloomberg Radio.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm Kevin Cirilli, and now joining me here to break down the latest headline as it relates to the Iowa caucus is Kathy Obradovich. She's the former political editor of the Des Moines Register. Kathy, headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal that says the Iowa Democratic Party has announced we're going to get most of the results of the Iowa caucus in just over 4 hours. 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. New York time. All right, so we're going to get results a couple of hours before the State of the Union.
Yes, a couple hours before the State of the Union. Now that is rough. You and I live.
You said it.
Yeah, we live and breathe for these numbers. And the fact is that the campaigns have already gone on to New Hampshire. This is really, really devastating for the Iowa Democratic Party and for all of Iowa. I defend the caucuses every 4 years. Iowa fights for its first in the nation status every 4 years, and I firmly believe that it should continue to fight, but something's got to change.
What should change?
Well, so there are options, some of which Iowa wanted to try this year, but the DNC said no, the Democratic National Committee. One of those was to have telephonic virtual caucuses where people could actually phone in, be absentee. It was mostly to address the accessibility issues where not everybody can get to a caucus. They address that partially by having these satellite caucuses. But the reporting issue might have been a little bit easier with people phoning in and making their selections on their phones. DNC said, no, we're worried that could be hacked. The Democrats could go toward what the Republicans do, which is to just have a simple little straw poll at their caucuses. That's quick and easy.
But see, I hear this, and I'm putting myself outside of our political bubble, and it's almost doesn't make sense that a process is this complex, that voting for who you want to be the nominee of your party is this complex and this unsecure. And this really, I know, rightfully so, the Iowa Democratic Party is getting a lot of questions, to put it mildly, but this really could have happened to any local community, to any state, no?
Well, so first of all, I don't think there's been any evidence that the process was not secure. They're talking about a glitch in their reporting app. They're saying the data is good. It's the reporting that was a problem. So I don't think there's any real question at this stage that there was some sort of security breach. So
I didn't mean to suggest as much in terms of the viability, but I hear you. Continue.
Yes, but the process is complex. This process was never designed for today's instant information media environment. This is a slow process that you meet with your neighbors, you talk it over. It's supposed to take a couple of hours, and the reporting really is secondary.
All right, so that's the politics. Let's talk the policy, because this is a major economic boom for the state of Iowa. And from an economic standpoint, to lose the first in the nation status there would be a significant economic.
It's not about the money. It's not about the money. What it's about, though, is the influence of Iowa. The money is nice, but there are a lot of costs.
All right, let's talk about the influence. Ethanol industry.
Yeah,
I mean, this is an opportunity for the ethanol industry to really talk to these candidates.
Yeah, it's more than about special interest, though. It's about having the person who's in the White House know Iowa, understand the state, know people here. Yes, know people here. And, when they have policies that come down the pike that hurt Iowans, they're more likely the White House is more likely to listen to what Iowans have to say. It's about access. It's about influence. Money is a side issue.
Well, no, but farmers, agriculture, USMCA trade deal, U.S.-China, we're talking about the impacts of that on this program. I mean, should Democrats or any one particular candidate or party avoid Iowa, what would that say about that party or that campaign's notion of the importance of states like Iowa?
One of the arguments for states like Iowa is that candidates have to learn about these issues in the heartland. They can't just campaign on the coast. They can't just campaign by buying millions and millions of dollars worth of ads. They have to get to know the people. They have to hone their issues, to talk to regular people on the ground. They have to be able to answer questions from regular people, not just the media. And those types of skills translate to other states. They learn it here. Because the process is slow, and grassroots oriented, and then they can take those skills to other states.
You mentioned that, and I do want to get your pick on this, because we were just talking before you came on air about how we interacted 4 years ago. I feel like every 4 years you see someone you met in Iowa in the caucus before.
That's so fun.
It is. It's a blast from the past. I remember the last cycle, just how anticipated that Des Moines Register poll was. I know. And
it's a stab in the heart.
I know, but it's this illustration of how funky, for lack of a better word, this caucus was, because that Des Moines Register poll never came out. What happened?
Yeah, so there's a theme that runs through here, Kevin. The Des Moines Register poll, there was a glitch. They didn't feel like they could be confident in the numbers. They chose integrity over putting out something that they knew was eagerly anticipated. The Democratic Party, everybody's waiting for the numbers. They're choosing integrity and trying to make sure that they get it right over satisfying the need to get that information out sooner. So in both cases, I think that the party and the Des Moines Register made the right decision, but they're incredibly, incredibly painful decisions. At the Register, there was a minor glitch at a call center, and they could not stand behind the numbers.
You know, I was struck by this. I was talking about it earlier on the program with Craig Gordon. I know you're going to stick around for radio as well, but we were talking about just this 72 hours in American politics, caucus debacle, okay, State of the Union, and then the acquittal tomorrow. Have you ever covered anything like this?
No, never. It's been, this has been a momentous year already, and it's barely February with the impeachment, the caucuses, everything that's going on. And my organization that I write for is only 5 weeks old. So
what's your organization?
Iowa Capital Dispatch.
Iowa Capital Dispatch. All right, you're going to stick around for me with Bloomberg Radio, and we're going to have complete coverage of the Iowa caucus results later this afternoon as we get them, and of course, the State of the Union. I'm Kevin Cirilli. Thanks for watching Bloomberg Television and Radio. More next.
Financial leaders enjoy.
Keys. Check. Phone. Check. 70s playlist downloaded. Check. Nice. There's one more thing you should check before you leave. Your travel. There's a new cycleway under construction between Kensington Olympia and Brentford Town Centre, so expect delays due to lane closures at the junction of Kew Bridge Road and Chiswick High Road. Plan ahead at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
As the boss, I expect only the best for my office. Air conditioning, super comfortable seating, digital radio, and rear parking sensors. From dealing with deliveries to balancing the books, my new Citroën van, my office on the move. Award-winning Citroën vans. Like you, they do it all. With £500 off during the February van event. Citroën. £500 discount inclusive of VAT on qualifying relay, dispatch and Berlingo vans ordered from 1st to 29th of February and registered by the 31st of March. Business users only. Full T's and C's at citroen.co.uk.
5 is in! What a run! Touchdown Kansas City!
Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years and second in franchise history.
50, Watkins 10, chase to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown! That may be all she wrote!
While the NFL's 100th season may be over, football never stops on TuneIn. Search NFL Podcast to stay current with all the off-season wheeling and dealing. And get ready for the 2020 NFL Draft in April.
From From Des Moines, this is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm Kevin Cirilli, and President Trump is set to deliver his third State of the Union address to a divided Congress amid a fast-approaching general election and a looming impeachment trial vote in the Senate expected tomorrow. For now, we're joined for more by Greg Sohr, Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter from Washington. I'm really struck by the pageantry every year of the State of the Union, Greg, and John Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts, in that chamber just ahead of this acquittal vote tomorrow is going to be historic.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've been watching him for the past several weeks, high above the Senate, overseeing the trial. Now he'll just be an audience member. He will, shake hands with people. He'll be polite, and he will try to show, much as he did in the impeachment trial, almost no expression throughout the speech.
And meanwhile, beyond all of that, the politics of this coming, of course, here in Iowa, where they're going to be doing, where they're releasing just a few short hours from before the start of the State of the Union address, most of the results of the caucus, and then the vote tomorrow. In terms of where this State of the Union address stacks up, Greg, with other State of the Union addresses for presidents who have gone through the impeachment process, how does it compare?
Yeah, it's certainly remarkable. Bill Clinton, of course, had to do something similar back in 1999 with his impeachment trial going on here. Of course, everybody is looking to see what sort of tone Donald Trump strikes. Will he be combative? Will he, go after Democrats for bringing up the impeachment articles in the first place? Will he try to move forward? And again, as you said, you're going to have the Supreme Court right there in the middle of it. The other branch of Congress that's not really involved in this political struggle, but has been drawn into it because of the impeachment trial and now the State of the Union address.
Greg Sohr, he's, of course, our Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter. Greg, I based upon my reporting and talking to sources at the White House and those advising the president on how he will communicate his State of the Union address this evening, I'm struck by two things. First and foremost is that he's going to be striking an optimistic tone. So from a rhetorical standpoint, he's going to be much more optimistic. But from a policy standpoint, he's got to really combine the political aspects of this and talk to the suburbs, does he not? What are you going to be looking for on a policy front?
On a policy front, in some senses, the president is going to be, he's looking ahead to re-election. He is starting to think about what is he going to be telling people why I should be re-elected. It can't just be, backwards looking, complaining about what Democrats have done. He's going to want to talk at some point about what he would do as president for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and meanwhile, in terms of the Medicare for All, in terms of health care policies that we're hearing, the president's going to continue to raise the issue of the Affordable Care Act and repeal of it, but also as it relates to prescription drug pricing and the president's economic policies as it relates to tariffs and how he's negotiating. And again, I said this earlier, I'm also anticipating, Greg, that we're going to hear a little bit about the coronavirus based upon my reporting and the president addressing that. But the stakes for this president on the eve of impeachment, just quickly before I let you go, the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, they're incredibly high, and of course you also have a Democratic Party that is in a bit of disarray after the Iowa debacle last night and continuing into today, the caucus debacle, and of course the failed or the expected failure of the impeachment vote. He will have an opportunity if he wants to do a bit of a victory lap, and this is a president that likes to do that sort of thing.
All right, Bloomberg's Supreme Court reporter Greg Sohr, thank you for joining us. And of course, breaking news now, headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund sold almost all of its Tesla holdings in the fourth quarter. That's according to a filing obtained by Bloomberg. And coming up, Balance of Power continues on Bloomberg Radio. I'll be hosting from right here in Des Moines. Tomorrow I'm headed off to New Hampshire. And remember to tune in for our special coverage of President Trump's State of the Union address. That kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is Balance of Power. I'm Kevin Cirilli on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Want to be billionaire Lloyd Blank